Long story short, written by Francisco Gac. Chapter 1. 1. Did I ever tell you the story of the Pino empanada? No, man. It doesn't ring a bell. Really? Look, this happened during the 18th. It was cold. I remember it was raining. It was back in the days when it still rained in September. I must have been around 21, 22 years old. Something like that. I met up with Adrian to party on one of the days of the 18th. This guy lives in Quinta Normal. First, I went to his house. It takes me about an hour from here, my poo. His whole family was there, his mom, his siblings, and his grandpa. I greeted everyone and we stayed there for a while, hanging out with his family. Then, it stopped raining and we headed to one of his friends' place. She was a tall girl, I remember. She lived about 5 blocks away. The house was nice, with a long backyard and all. But you know, Quinta Normal can be kinda flat, you know? We called it Raccoon City, like the city from Resident Evil. Because sometimes you'd pass by at night and there would be fog, it wasn't well lit, and there were drunk guys all over the streets. Like zombies walking around. Guys around the liquor stores and all. But we were in a more residential area. We arrived, and there were a lot of people at the party. I recognized a few, because I had been there like once or twice before. We were having a great time, just hanging out, and Adrian started dancing with this girl. No. They weren't dancing. They were just talking. I was right there next to them. Out of nowhere, the girl said she had to go, and Adrian goes, "Puta. You're leaving?" Then, her boyfriend turns around and says, "What did you just call my girlfriend?" The guy interpreted it as if he had called her a whore, you know. Adrian tried to explain to the guy, but while laughing. That made the guy even angrier, and suddenly he got close to hit Adrian. And, man, I pushed him really hard. But the guy didn't even look at me and kept going, all focused on Adrian. Everyone at the party started kicking him out. We didn't get involved. The guy left, still complaining, and his girlfriend was trying to calm him down. When they left, the guy yelled at Adrian, "Hey, I'll wait for you outside," and Adrian, on top of it, responds, "Sure, I'll be right there, let me have a drink first." The guy was furious, but that was the end of it. We never saw that guy again. We just kept messing around after that. Later on, I got hungry and the host's mom, really nice lady, offered me a Pino empanada. Cool, she let us use her house, put up with what had happened, and on top of it, she offers me an empanada. I was so happy, man. A Pino empanada when you're starving is like the best thing that can happen to you, you know. The lady put the empanada in the microwave, but she didn't really know how to use it properly. She left it for like 5 minutes, and it ended up scorching hot. I took a bite and almost burned myself. I told her, "Hey, thank you very much," and all. I waited for it to cool down a bit, started eating it, and, man. The thing was frozen inside. And being the little kid I was, I didn't say anything to the lady. I just kept eating it like that. Later, the party ended, and we went back to Adrian's house. We arrived, Adrian set up a mattress next to his bed, I covered myself with some hoodies, and we went to sleep. Suddenly, I woke up around 6 in the morning with terrible heartburn. It felt like someone had put ice at the bottom of my stomach. I tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. I started feeling nauseous. I wanted to wake up Adrian, but damn. Waking that guy up is utopic. It's just not gonna happen. I started kicking him and all, but nothing. Why did you want to wake him up? So he could give me a bag or tell me, vomit in the yard, I don't know. Anything. I was in someone else's house, after all. In the end, I said, okay. I'll just go to the bathroom instead. I got up, left the room, tried to open the bathroom door, and it was locked. There was someone inside. Who the hell goes to the bathroom on a Sunday at 6 in the morning? I started banging on the door because I couldn't hold it anymore, begging them to let me in. Then, Adrian's grandfather comes out in flip-flops, and dude, I puked all over his feet. And the old man says, "All right, youngster, come in." So I went in, closed the door, and I'm not kidding, I must have spent about 4 hours in the bathroom. That long? Well, I don't know, maybe less, but I was in there for a long time, for sure. I didn't want to come out because I was so embarrassed. Plus, I was still a bit drunk, so I fell asleep for a while. But I had to come out at some point, so I opened the door and noticed that everything was clean. I didn't even clean it myself. I was so ashamed, I just left. I never went back to Adrian's house. And I used to go there all the time. Almost every weekend. But wait. Later, for New Year's, I went back. I returned. Still feeling extremely embarrassed, though. When I walked into the house, the whole family was celebrating. There I was, greeting them all awkwardly. Adrian's grandpa was a bit tipsy, he's a cool old man, and he sees me and says, "Hey. Do you want a Pino empanada?" Oh, man, we burst out laughing. That's when everything got resolved. Well, there wasn't really a problem, but that's when the tensions went away. 2. Adrian's grandfather always has crazy things happen to him. Always. The funniest thing that happened, apart from me vomiting on his feet, was when Henry went to Adrian's house because he was having love problems. Henry was a friend of ours who was kind of punk, and his girlfriend too. The guy suffered because the girl was a bit crazy. She was wild. In one of his moments of suffering, the girl dumped him, so Henry went to Adrian's to drown his sorrows. It was just the two of them, drinking in the backyard. Henry, being sad, got wasted. Then they went to sleep. They both laid down on Adrian's bed. Later, in the early morning, Henry woke up to go vomit. The thing is, after he vomited, he fell asleep for a while in the bathroom. Look, Adrian's room and his grandfather's room are next to each other. When Henry came out of the bathroom, it was all dark, so he got confused and went into the grandfather's room. Then, the next day, Adrian got scared because he couldn't find his friend anywhere, man. He started searching for him in the house. He entered the grandfather's room and saw them both sleeping there, and the grandfather had no clue, man. 3. Adrian's grandfather is well known in Quinta Normal. He's the president of the neighborhood council and was a political exile or something like that. He spent time in Russia. He knows Russian and all. Once, also during the September 18th festivities, the old man was at a local fair that was near their house. Actually, it was a fair organized by Adrian's family, and since the grandfather was the president of the neighborhood council, they used the headquarters. During that time, there was this soap opera on TVN called El Conde Vrolak. Remember? No, man. No? It was about vampires. Alvaro Rudolphi played a vampire. Okay, the thing is, they named the fair the Count Trollocs. Like Trollo, which means gay in Chilean slang. It was a hit. Adrian's grandfather had been drinking a lot. He was wasted. Along with Adrian and Jessica, who was a friend of ours, we had to take him home. It was nearby, just a few blocks away. The old man was mad at us because he wanted to keep drinking. And suddenly, he starts swearing in Russian. He was wasted, cursing in Russian. He was like an old mafia guy. We took him home. We put him to bed. And we vomited on him, haha, no dash. We put him to bed and then we went to drop off Jessica. After that, Adrian and I went back to the fair to keep messing around. 4. Jessica was a friend of ours who lived near Adrian. We liked going out with Jessica because she would dance to us and everything, and she had a nice butt. She was cool. She was attractive, but she was a bit flate. She would wear jeans that showed off her ass. I flirted with her, but we never made out or anything. It was just joking around. Jessica had this phase where she had a kind of Pokemon-like haircut. But she wasn't a Pokemon girl. Once I said to her, "Hey, nice haircut, what do you do to get it like that?" And she replied, "Oh, I do it with a Gillette." And I was expecting some cool answer like I go to the hair salon and all, but no. I do it with a Gillette, she said. Once Adrian told me that Jessica had a job. You know what she had to do? Try on jeans. Some old guy would call her and she had to try on the jeans he brought to sell because she had a big butt. I don't know much about her life, to be honest. It's been a while since I last saw her. I have her on social media, though. She's working and had a child with her boyfriend, who is an ugly fat bastard. 5. Once we were partying at Jessica's house. Her parents weren't there. Tommy was there that time. Tommy is a guy who went a whole year without going out to party. We invited him, brought girls, and nothing. It was no use. When he started going out again, one day he revealed to us that he didn't go out because he was ashamed that we were studying while he had dropped out of his degree. The guy didn't go out, didn't work, didn't do a damn thing for a year. At Jessica's party, Tommy's girlfriend was also there. Her name was Maka. She was with her group of female friends, while Tommy was with us. They were a bit distant at that time. At one point during the party, we were all dancing when suddenly we see Tommy pulling his girlfriend's hair. We all started like, "Tomas, let her go." "What's wrong with you, Tomas?" He let go of her hair. The girl said something to him and left with one of her friends. We started asking, "Tomas, dude, what's going on? Why did you do that?" And this moron tells us that while they were dancing, he said to Maka, "Dude, I want to fuck you." To his girlfriend. He started saying, "I'll pay you. How much do you want? 10 Lucas? 20? I think she responded with something like, "But Tomas, what's wrong? We're in a relationship, you don't have to pay me." Or something like that, I don't know. This guy kept insisting and started pulling her hair. It was just stupid. They didn't break up right after that, but soon, you know. By that time, the relationship was already a bit messed up, it seems. As a side note, they called Tommy's girlfriend the werewolf woman because I think she had chest hair. 6. Tommy is a very special person. He's Adrian's distinguished neighbor. They live across from each other, literally. Like 5 steps away. Adrian always used to throw parties at his house, in the backyard. That house was somehow destined for crazy things to happen. For one gathering they had when they were like 17, 18 years old, a girl suddenly felt like vomiting. I wasn't present for this story, but they told me about it. This girl wanted to vomit, so she stood up and started heading to the bathroom, but she didn't make it. So she kind of leaned her head back, and she vomited on her own back. Can you believe that someone can vomit on their own back? This girl did. Instead of helping her, people started applauding, and I think one stone guy said, "Sister, you've got a gift." The first time we met Tommy was at a party Adrian threw one afternoon at his house. We were like in our last year of high school. We studied at INBA, an all-boys school. That day we invited some girls from another school. We were hanging out in Adrian's backyard, and this guy showed up. Tommy was like 18 or 19 at that time. He was studying at the university. At one point, we started teasing him because he had the same emo hairstyle as a classmate, but he looked more like another one.
Carreño?
Carreño was a really ugly guy, although we can't say that Tommy is Brad Pitt. Tomas was ugly, but Carreño took it to another level. So we started saying that Tomas was the handsome Carreño. Right away, we became friends with Tommy. He liked watching the wrestling, just like me, and we would wrestle with the kids from the neighborhood. We would go pick them up and everything. We gave the kids wrestler names, and they would listen to us. 7. The three of us used to play pool, Tomas, Adrian, and me. This was when we were around 21. We would go to this really seedy pool hall that was run by a gray-haired old man. We had to enter through a gate. It was really trashy. There were only old, drunk, sleazy guys. And us. We played the usual game, with points and everything, but for every ball one of us pocketed, the opponent had to remove an article of clothing. We were all bundled up, wearing jackets and everything. Even in summer. When we arrived, the owner saw us all bundled up in the middle of summer and got shocked. Then he realized that we were stripping down and the old bastard didn't say anything. He allowed us to be there in our underwear. He didn't care at all. 8. Tomas also had all sorts of absurd things happening to him. Look, this guy studied at a school in Quinta Normal that was, like, right next to his house. 2 blocks away. For the college entrance exam, PSU, back then, he had to take it at his own school, and the dumbass arrived late, man. He overslept. It didn't go too bad for him, though, because he got into the language program at the Pedagogical University, also known as the Pedagogico. At that time, he had his girlfriend, the werewolf woman, to whom he offered money to have sex with. Long story short, he didn't like the program and dropped out. He lasted like 2 years. Then he broke up with Maka, and that's when he spent a year without leaving his house. We used to say that he was clinging to the walls because when we went to get him, we knew he was there, but we looked in and couldn't see him. Sometimes his mom would come out and tell us that Tomas didn't want to come out and talk to us. And we hadn't done anything to him. Then he started going out again. Very low-key. He hooked up with Navarro, a really annoying female friend of ours. But he still spent a long time without working, without doing anything. You know, his family had a dog food distributor. They had a truck. They delivered dog food in that truck. The dumbass Tomas went to his sister's house in the truck one day, and on the way, he got hungry. So he stopped at a place to buy a Completo. There was no parking, so he just parked somewhere nearby. He bought the Completo, came back, and the truck was gone. It disappeared. And it was the family's work tool, man. Plus, it wasn't insured, so he really messed up. Did he have to pay for it or something? I don't think so. Where would he get the money? He didn't work or anything. The truck was red. It was cool, I remember. Tomas was in a bad place during that time, but then he started dating this girl, and things started looking up. They've been together for like 5 years now, and he's working at a store. He's the supervisor. When we call him for gatherings, he usually shows up. Everything's good with Tomas. Chapter 2. 1. I arrived in Quinta Normal because of Adrian, who was my schoolmate. At first, we weren't really friends. This guy was chubby and nerdy, but he was friendly. He started becoming friends with our group because of football, soccer. He always played against us, but then, to play more, he started playing with us too. And from there, one day we started hanging out. He invited me to his house, I met the girls, and then we had that party where we met Tomas. Tomas lived across the street. I mean, he still lives there to this day. A little further up lived Isa. Isa had her friends, who later became our friends too. There was also Joe, Jessica, the girl I talked about earlier, Henry. And from there, it's like Game of Thrones, man. So many characters. There was also the younger generation of kids, you know, the younger siblings of our friends, we partied with them sometimes, and, obviously, there was the adult generation.
Adrian's mom, Tomás, mom.
The adults also hang out. They had parties. They mostly gathered at Jessica's house. The adults were friends too. I think that's why they allowed us to have parties at home, because in the end, almost everyone knew each other, and there was trust. Adrian started studying film. He always loved movies. In fact, at INBA, we made videos of wrestling. And Adrian would edit them and all. One day, Adrian and I went to shoot a short film at Parque Forestal. It was a short film by an Adrian's Kiko classmate. I went as an extra to fulfill my dream of being an actor. That's where I met Mudito, which means little mute guy, a big guy who was Adrian's friend. Mudito was like the producer of the short film. That's when our friendship with Mudito began. Is that short film anywhere? I have no idea, man. I never saw it because I didn't even appear in the film. They cut out my part because I looked directly at the camera during filming. That was the moment my dream of being an actor went to hell. After finishing their studies, Adrian and Mudito teamed up and started a small production company called K&M. But it didn't go far. What does K&M stand for? The K was for Casca, or something, a nickname Adrian gave himself which I never understood, and the M was for Mudito, obviously. Sounds like a failure, man. What can I say? Yeah, pretty much. But Adrian is doing well now. He works in TV channels as a producer. He has even worked on movies. And how is Mudito doing? Mudito works with his dad. With Dracula. They work in a kind of metal company that manufactures screws or something. He always says they have Haitian employees, hahaha. And he still lives with his parents. Mudito is a cool guy. He has a son and everything. And why do they call his dad Dracula, man? They call him Dracula because one night Mudito said he heard a blood-curdling scream in the middle of the night. Around 3 a.m. It was his mom screaming. So he goes to his parents' room, and what happened is that his mom was screaming because her husband, Dracula, had bitten her neck, man. That's why they nicknamed him Dracula. And the man said he had dreamed that he was Count Dracula and was going to bite someone. Ha ha ha. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, man. Well, as I was saying, Adrian has been living with his girlfriend, Barros, for years. I played Cupid there. Barros was my classmate, and she once asked me to accompany her to INBA because she had to do one of her university assignments. An observation task. Since I'm a former student of INBA, she wanted me to go with her. It was an all-boys school, man. She was nervous. The thing is, I was lazy, man. I told her, well, Barros, I'm feeling lazy. But let's ask Adrian, a friend of mine who is from there and studied at INBA. So they went, they met, and they've been together ever since. Now they live together in an apartment. Barros is working at a school. Adrian is doing fine too, but he has sporadic jobs. Every now and then, the guys do something in their apartment and invite us. 2. One day, ISA, one of our best friends from Quinta Normal, threw a costume party for her birthday. I dressed up as a hippie. Adrian. I don't remember what he dressed up as. Victor was a vampire. Our costumes were really crappy. Mudito, who used to shave his head, dressed up as Professor X from the X-Men, haha. We took ISA's wheelchair to take pictures of Mudito. ISA had been using a wheelchair for a while, and she still had it. Big Show, a guy from university who was like 2 meters tall, dressed up as a butler. It was actually the outfit he wore once for a wedding. The guy always wears the same damn costume. ISA and the rest of the girls dressed up as Batgirl, Supergirl, princesses. The typical costumes girls wear. The first funny thing that happened at that party was when Victor was dancing with a girl dressed as Batgirl. She was pretty hot. They were dancing, and suddenly she had to go to the bathroom. She told Victor, wait for me. Then we heard a scream. We all looked at each other like, what the hell? The girl comes back, and all her prettiness vanished because her flayed side came out. She said to ISA, the host, your damn house is dirty and shit, it has recluse spiders, I got bitten by one, then they had to take her to the hospital, man. At one point, I went to the bathroom, and there was a lot of laughter coming from the kitchen. I heard Tomas, Big Show, Mudito, Kika, who was Victor's sister. They couldn't stop laughing. I went to check what was going on. And they had accidentally broken the refrigerator door. They were taking pictures showing it. I cracked up and joined the photo session. Then ISA, the host, came in, and they all started playing dumb. Blaming each other. In the end, they said they opened it and it just broke. ISA didn't get mad, though. She was like, well, it broke, I guess, but nobody said, damn. It was me. And who was it? I don't know. It's a mystery that was never revealed. That party was great. We stayed up all night. We played any game and everything. Any game is the best card game ever, and I invented it. It's a drinking game. I'll explain it to you later if you want. Alright, cool. 3. We stayed up all night, and in the morning, we went to the street market. Around 7 o'clock. We wanted to buy stuff to make noodles. We were on our way to the street market, drinking boxed wine. Red wine. Victor is crazy, man. At one point, the idiot thought it would be a great idea to grab the box of red wine and throw it on Big Show's back. And to make it worse, Big Show was wearing a white shirt. Big Show got really mad, but then they were all laughing their asses off. He took off his shirt and wore a tank top instead. The tank top got stained a bit, but not too much. There's even a photo somewhere of us with the wine-stained shirt. At the market, we bought a pack of noodles, some tomatoes, and then we went to a store to buy tomato sauce and a pack of sausages. We arrived at Adrian's place in the morning to cook and clean Big Show's shirt. It was around 9 o'clock. We made the noodles, set the table, and started eating. There, the grossest shit in the world happened. Adrian, that fucked up guy, we were all at the table, and his dog approached. A big, black female dog. It put her front paws on the table, and this dude started feeding her from his own plate, grabbing it with his fingers. Disgusting pig. And on top of that, we were teasing Adrian so damn hard, and suddenly the dog goes under the table, Victor grabs it, puts its two front legs on the table, and starts eating with the dog. Both of them sharing the same plate. But was he just feeding it or were they both eating from the same plate? From the same plate, man. It was like the Chilean version of Lady and the Tramp. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. I swear. Crazy. 4. ISA, the girl who had the costume party for her birthday, is a friend of ours who was in a car accident, you know? And it was really hard for her to walk again. She had surgery, then more surgery, and even more. At first, she was in a wheelchair, but since she was wild, young, she still went to parties. One time, she went out in a wheelchair to party with Tomas and Adrian. I'm talking about when they were like 16, 17 years old. They were drinking in a squat house. There were a lot of people. They were having a great time, but it seems like the neighbors complained about the noise, so the cops showed up, and chaos broke loose. Everyone started running. Adrian carried ISA on his shoulder. ISA, by the way, is skinny. She is a pale and skinny little thing. ISA's house wasn't far, so after they ran away, Adrian took her on piggyback to her place. What about the wheelchair? I don't know. I think it stayed there or Tomas took it. I'm not sure. Adrian took ISA on piggyback, both drunk, around 2 in the morning in Quinta Normal. It seems it was the first time Adrian went to ISA's place. When they arrived at her house, Adrian rang the doorbell, and an elderly man with sunglasses appeared at the window. They stared at each other. And ISA told Adrian, "Dude, my grandpa is blind." Adrian was shocked. Then, the old man opened the door, Adrian left ISA inside, and he went back to his house. ISA could walk, but not much. She couldn't run or do any intense exercise. She used these metal things on her feet for a while, you know? It was tough for her. When she had the accident, the surgery went wrong, so she had to undergo a long recovery. She spent several years recovering. Now she's fine, yeah. She has a child and everything. She's with the father of her child. Everything's good with ISA. In fact, the father of her child was the doctor who helped her with the rehabilitation. Seriously? Like a movie. Yeah, man. 5. When it came to partying, we relied on word of mouth. Like, hey, there's a party at Jessica's place, at Tomas' place, at ISA's friend's place. Everyone lived more or less nearby. Once, with Adrian, we went to a really flake place. A female friend of his invited us to party in Cerro Navia. It wasn't far. The districts are adjacent. We went, and it was the flatest thing ever. First of all, we arrived around 2 in the morning, and there were guys wearing Messi and Ronaldinho jerseys. I was like, alright, this is not good. There were even guys playing baby football at that hour. The court was all fenced in. The ones they call a hen house. The typical multisports court with messed up goals, basketball hoop stands without the hoops, and all that. The house where the party was being held had the gate open. You could just walk in. It was full of people coming and going, wearing football jerseys, and very flake girls. We didn't know if we should go in. Plus, I was wearing a coat. I don't know how they didn't mug me. Adrian's friends were inside waiting for us, so we ended up going in. We hung out with the girls, but we felt really uncomfortable the whole time. The house inside was like a place without furniture, just packed with people. It was like they had emptied the house and crammed a big bunch of people inside. I don't think we stayed there for more than an hour. Then we left, scared shitless. It was a bad experience. Really bad. 6. Speaking of flight things, I remembered this one time we went to a nightclub. It was called El Fausto or something like that. Fortunato, that's what it was called. We went with Adrian and some other guys from INBA. Some guys from Quinta Normal had told us that Fortunato was the fanciest nightclub in the area. We dressed up, went there all fancy. And it was so damn flate, dude. Screw that. We started dancing, and at some point, they played the Mix Brazil, that one with pure axe music. Sacudindo a Jaca, Danza de Manavila, Oda Oats, Meazinha, and all that stuff. We were having a great time dancing to the mix, and then they played that song. I don't know if you know it, but in the choreography, you have to simulate fucking the person next to you. So, we all motivated started doing it. I did it to the left, and there was a girl. Okay, cool, I did it. Then we had to do it to the right. I turned around, and there was Adrian. I did it anyway, I don't care, but Adrian had to do it with some random guy. Adrian did the choreography, and the guy stared at him, all serious. Adrian made a gesture like saying, "Dude, it's the music." Then, the same thing. First to the left, all good, and then to the right again. Adrian did the choreography again, and the guy got genuinely angry. He wanted to hit him, but Adrian kept doing it and was like, "Dude, it's the music." I was like, "But why the hell does he keep doing it, man?" Chapter 3. 1. A long time ago, when I was 15 years ago, my dad went to Barrio Megs and bought me a deck of Dragon Ball Z cards. It was an English deck. I was really into Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. It was the trend back then. The deck had characters from all stages, Super Saiyan 3 Goku and all that. The Jokers were cool because they were holographic and had Goku in his third level form. So, to prevent them from wearing out, I came up with the idea of laminating them with scotch tape on both sides. It was a mistake. I basically made the deck unplayable because then everyone knew which cards were the Jokers. Why didn't you laminate the whole deck instead? No way, man. It took forever to laminate just one card, and I wasted a lot of scotch. Besides, the deck wasn't that useful because I only had one. I don't know if you know it, but to play various card games, like karaoke, for example, you need 2 decks. In the end, I just kept it as a keepsake. The thing is, when I was a bit older, one day we had a gathering at my house with Tomas and Adrian. We set up in the backyard, where the chairs and the little table are. I had some cheap booze stored, rum mitchins, and I came up with an idea. I took out the cards and started improvising a drinking game. That's when I created the first Emmy game. The first version was pretty crappy, though. It went something like, if you draw a 1, you drink; if you draw a 2, the person on your left drinks; if you draw a 3, the person on your right drinks; if you draw a 4, you choose who drinks, and so on. Since we were playing with strong drinks, we used bottle caps to drink. As time went on, I realized there were other drinking games, like La Cultura Chapistica, the Drinking Culture, La Historia, the Story, and El Chancho Inflado, Inflated Pig. So, I started adding them to the rest of the cards. It became like challenges, you know? Sometimes, new people would play Emmy game for the first time and show us a game to add to the list. Emmy game goes like this: a group of friends, boys and girls, gather around a table. A deck of cards is placed on the table, and each person takes turns drawing a card. It can go from left to right, or however you want, really. You draw a card and show it to everyone. Each card represents a different challenge. Every time someone loses, they take a sip from a strong drink using a bottle cap. There has to be a moderator. I always take on the role of the moderator. Well, sometimes the girls who have played a lot with me have done it too. What does the moderator do? Basically, they have to know the games, or have them written down, and say something like, "Alright, you drew a 3, the one on your right drinks," and then they serve the drink themselves. Also, the moderator has to act as a referee in case of any issues. The fun of Emmy game is to play with at least 4 people. It doesn't work with less. Some games require a minimum of 4 players. You have to play with a strong booze, a guardian, rum, or something like that. Because the idea is to try not to lose. The thing is, sometimes you play these games and people let themselves lose on purpose because they want to drink. If it's a game, the idea is to win, not to lose easily. 2. Now I'm gonna explain what each card means. With the ace, you drink; 2, the person to your left drinks; 3, the person to your right drinks; 4, you choose who drinks. Then we have the 5, which is the story. For example, you say "I," then the next person says "I saw," and the next one adds another word. The story has to make sense. You can't say something like "I saw dog," you know? If you make a mistake, you drink. The 6 is the rule. There, you set a rule. For example, every time Victor loses, Emmy drinks double. Something like that. The rules have to be smart. When it was my turn, I was tough. I came up with rules like every time I drink, all the girls drink. That way, if the "you choose who drinks" card comes up, no girl would choose me because if they do, they have to drink themselves. That's how teams are formed, you know? But the rules can't be too stupid. Otherwise, it ruins everything. The moderator is the one who has to set the limits. Then we have the 7, which is the game the 7. In this game, everyone counts 1, 2, 3. To the right. When it's your turn to say 7, or any number that includes 7 like 17, or multiples of 7, clap. You clap without saying the number, and the counting direction reverses. So, the guys who are bad at math mess up right away. But even if you're good at math, when you're really drunk, you can still mess up. We had a friend who we were playing with for my birthday once. This girl was an engineer and all, but she struggled with the 7. She made mistakes with the basics. Instead of clapping, she would say 7, or when she reached 14, she would say 14, and clap. Just silly things like that. One time we were playing the 7, this girl was really drunk, but things were progressing a lot. We were around 36, and it was her turn for 37. She had to clap. But she got so nervous that she said, fuck. 7,777, clap. And clapped, man. And she drank it. It's like she couldn't handle the pressure. She did that, and we all burst out laughing. For the 8, we play Inflated Pig. If you draw that card, you have to puff up your cheeks. The last one to do it, or rather, the last one who doesn't do it, loses. Inflated Pig is funny because you suddenly start puffing up your cheeks, looking at the rest of the guys, and some of them don't understand why you're doing that. Imagine partying and seeing a drunk guy staring at you with puffed up cheeks. The 9 is the drinking culture, which is the typical drinking game. In this game, you say, for example, the drinking culture calls for TV brands like Panasonic, and everyone has to continue to the right, saying other brands. If someone repeats a brand that has already been mentioned, says something unrelated, or takes too long, they lose. The 10 was the lemon. In the lemon, everyone has to count themselves. Like 1 lemon, 2 lemon, 3 lemon. Always in the singular form. The person who drew the card starts and says, for example, 1 lemon, half lemon, 3 lemon. Then it's the turn of the person who counted 3. So, the person says, 3 lemon, half a lemon, 7 lemon. Then it's the turn of the person who counted 7. And so on, everyone nominates each other without a specific order. That's how it goes until someone makes a mistake in the sequence, says lemons, or takes too long to respond. It may sound easy, but in those games, when you're drunk, it's easy to make mistakes. The Jack was the Viking. In the Viking, you also count 1, 2, 3 to the right. The person who starts, for example, says, Viking 1 calling Viking 5. Then, Viking 5 raises their hands to their temples, as if wearing a helmet, and the people on both sides, that is, 4 and 6, have to pretend to row outward, as if they were in a boat, and the person in the middle, 5, were the captain. They do that, and then 5 says, for example, Viking 5 calling Viking 2. Then 2 does the same with 1 and 3. In the original version, when someone makes a mistake, the 3 people on the boat drink. But in any game, only the person who made the mistake drinks because otherwise it would be too much. Then we have the Queen, which was the power of the finger. If you draw that card, you have to place your index finger on the table. Not the whole hand, just the finger. And everyone has to do the same. Just like in Inflated Pig, the one who isn't alert loses. You can discreetly place your finger, or sometimes you can conspire with the others. If there's a guy not paying attention, you can tell the others, dude, I got the finger, let's take advantage while this guy is not paying attention. Then we have the Kaiser, which is the 4th king. This is a classic game. You see, a normal deck of cards has 4 kings, so every time one is drawn, you have to pour a shot of alcohol into a glass in the middle of the table. When the 4th king, the 4th Kaiser, is drawn, the 4th shot goes into the glass, and the person who drew the card has to drink it all. It's like losing 4 times. It's brutal. Based on my experience with any game, the person who draws the 4th king is screwed, they're done, they have to leave the game. Lastly, we have the Joker. If you draw the Joker, you can choose any challenge from the other cards. But you have to choose quickly. You can't think too much about it. Most people choose the story or the drinking culture, but those who have more experience with any game usually choose the rule because that's where you can manipulate the game the most. The idea of playing any game, obviously, depends on the occasion, you know? You can use it to get really drunk if you want, but it's also good for pre-partying. And you always have to play it with strong alcohol. It can be cheap or high quality, but the idea is that it's strong. Because if you start playing any game, and someone says, well, I'll just drink beer, it's no fun, man. It wouldn't matter if you lose, and you don't put much effort into the game. But when you realize that, I don't know, you've had 2 or 3 shots, and it's already making you dizzy, you don't want to lose, and you start trying hard. Sometimes the damn game is ruthless with you. It's crazy, you lose all the time. Any game is fun, but not just because you get drunk. It's fun because you share. 3. One day we had a party at my house, and we had invited some friends from Quinta Normal. We played any game. We had a great time. We danced and everything. At one point, Tomas and Adrian went to the park to smoke a joint. I don't know why they went to the park, they're such idiots. Maybe it was just to keep the joint to themselves. They sat on a bench. Adrian was rolling the joint, and Tomas started laughing. Adrian said, Tomas, what the hell, why are you laughing, while he was rolling the joint, but Tomas kept laughing and didn't say anything. Then Adrian turned around, and there was a police car behind them, man. Tomas, that jerk, instead of warning Adrian, just kept laughing. The police officers stayed there for a while and then left. I think it was just to scare them, you know. 4. There came a point when we always played that game, you know? So, one time, Victor moved to this new apartment with his family. It was brand new, located in Nunoa. The floor was carpeted. It was raining that day. So, Victor told us, guys, I'm gonna ask you to please not make a mess. Take off your shoes before entering because the apartment is new and the floor is carpeted. We've only been here for 2 days. They left me in charge for tonight. I invited you all, so please, the only thing I'm asking is for you to keep it clean. Very emphatic, the fucker. That night, we played any game with some strong booze. We were all men, but there were a lot of us. We all ended up wasted. At one point, we went to the liquor store to get more booze. When we came back, our feet were all covered in mud because it was raining. We started taking off our shoes before entering, but then Victor just goes ahead and walks into the apartment with his shoes on. He was the only one who didn't take them off. He left the whole place with mud marks. Afterwards, he was all worried, almost crying, trying to clean the carpeted floor and saying that his mom would scold him. Chapter 4. 1. Panchox is this guy Victor met in college. He lives near me, like 10 minutes from my house. Since he lived close by and was Victor's classmate, the three of us started hanging out a lot. Over time, Victor and Panchox became close friends. They not only partied together but also invited each other to family gatherings. Victor has this fixation with his friends' families, so he would always be tagging along. Panchox was weird. Like, really weird, man. Look, sometimes when we got super drunk, we'd do stupid stuff like stealing street signs. It was dumb, but it was just silly things we did as kids. One night we started doing that shit. Then, as we were walking to Panchox's house, we saw him grabbing a trash bag from outside a house and taking it with him. We're like, dude, why are you taking the trash bag? What the hell? And this jerk goes, I don't know, it just occurred to me. We get to his place, he walks in with the bag and leaves it in the kitchen. That bag could have had shit, a mouse, hell. All sorts of stuff. That's sicko, man. Once, it was Panchox's birthday, but he didn't throw a big party or anything. He had a gathering with only his closest ones. He was at home, having beers with his girlfriend and a cousin. He was always hanging out with those two, and he had invited Victor. After a while, Victor showed up with beer. Victor, whenever he drinks beer, he has to pee all the time. So, after a while, he gets up and says he's going to the bathroom. Then Panchox goes, let's go, I need to pee too, but let's go outside. Despite having a bathroom right there in Panchox's house, those jerks went to pee on the street. Victor and Carlos, another friend from school, always used to pee each other when they were drunk. They would have pee wars. Victor had that habit. So, Victor and Panchox went to pee on a wall across the street. Victor started off shy, man. He told me all this. He had a lot of liquid in him because he had drunk a lot of beer, and he started drawing those typical doodles on the wall. Each time, the stream of pee was getting closer to Panchox. So, this crazy guy couldn't hold it in and pissed on Panchox's leg. Victor told me that Panchox's face completely changed. He got really mad and started giving him a hard time, like really harshly. After that, they went inside, and Panchox went to change his pants. Long story short, Victor stayed the night, and the next morning he left, and after that, Panchox didn't speak to him anymore. Victor would send him messages, but the guy wouldn't respond. And at university? I don't know. I think he just ignored him. For years past, man, 4 years. And Victor, who was living in La Reina where he currently lives, suddenly gets a call from Panchox. Victor answers. They greet each other and everything, and then Panchox tells him he misses him and wants to see him. They agree that Panchox would come to Victor's house. Panchox rode his bike all the way from Maipu to La Reina. It was a damn long ride. He came over, hung out with Victor, had some beers and all. It seemed like they were cool, but after that, Panchox still didn't talk to him anymore. He didn't reply to the messages. Victor doesn't know what the deal was. That's the story. The last time they saw each other was at Panchox's grandmother's funeral, but Victor says they just greeted each other. Victor sometimes sees on social media that Panchox posts photos of his birthday, partying and all. He used to invite Victor all the time, but he never did again. Victor, to this day, doesn't understand why Panchox holds a grudge against him. He gets that he messed up by peeing on him, but it's not that big of a deal, right? 2. ISA had her group of female friends that we used to party a lot with. Within that group of friends was Fat Vika. Vika was such an unpleasant fat girl, dude. To give you an example, sometimes we were at parties having a great time, and she would suddenly say, alright, let's go, and take the girls with her. We would all be dancing together, with the girls and everything, but Fat Vika would always end up alone because nobody wanted to dance with her. So, she would get mad and take off with the girls. She was a pain in the ass, dude. She weighed like 100, maybe even more. She was fat and crazy. She lived next to Tommy. Her mom was like a witch or something. She did some black magic shit, I don't know. Sometimes we were invited to parties, and she would act unpleasant in other people's houses. There was a time when the boys from INBA would go party in Quinta Normal, and she treated them like shit too. She never did that with me, though, because I never gave her any attention. She treated Tommy like shit. She would tease him about being lazy. In fact, I think Vika was one of the reasons Tommy stopped going out. We always disliked her, but not because she was fat or ugly. It's because she was a mean person, dude. That was the thing. Sometimes you can come across unpleasant people who are not to your taste, but this girl was just plain mean, you know? I think that's worse. Ha ha ha, once Adrian threw a party for his birthday. They didn't have it at his house but at his aunt's house, which was like 2 blocks away. There were a lot of people. We were partying, everything was fine, and it came time to sing happy birthday. Adrian's mom came in with the cake in her hands. By the way, I think Adrian's mom and aunt had spent the whole afternoon making the cake. They sang happy birthday, Adrian made his wishes, blew out the candle, and then, out of nowhere, Fat Vika goes and smashes Adrian's face into the cake. And the cake falls on the floor, man. Adrian's mom got angrier than hell because she had spent the whole afternoon making the cake, and in the end, nobody got to eat it because it fell. The lady, furious, kicked all the fuckers out. She left only us, the closest friends. Vika was a real pain in the ass. She would pull off those kind of messed up things. There was a time she started a relationship with some guy. I don't know who the hell would date that, but I think she became a bit more discreet then. 3. Throughout my life, funny things have always happened. But not necessarily to me, but to people around me. Whether influenced by me or not, funny things always happen wherever I go. I think it's attributed to my ancestors. Something in the family. My grandfather must be around 90 years old now. He's really old. He used to tell us that when he and his friends were young, most of them had kids. They were married and all. So, the only entertainment they had was drinking and doing stupid stuff. In his group of friends, his best friend was the drunkard of the group. He told us that his friend would get so wasted that he would black out, and his friends would take advantage of it and play nasty pranks on him. It was like Jackass, but in a time when they couldn't record that shit. One time, when the guy was passed out drunk, my grandpa and his friends pulled down his pants and tied his penis to the laces of his boots. The guy was completely wasted, he didn't notice anything. When he woke up and tried to stand up, he pulled his penis with the laces, and my grandpa says he let out a scream like an animal. Another story my grandfather tells is about a winter day when they got together to drink. His friend got so drunk that he fell asleep outdoors. After a while, it started raining. And instead of helping him like normal people would do, I don't know, put him under a roof or cover him, they were looking at him while drinking and laughing. The thing is, they left him there, they forgot about him, and the man died, man. He died. My grandfather told me that story while laughing his ass off. And he said he was his best friend. Without any remorse. 4. One day, ISA had a party at her house. We were all scattered around. Some people were hanging out in the backyard, while others were inside the house. Adrian and I were in the backyard. At some point, we needed to ask ISA something, but we didn't know where she was. I can't remember what we wanted to ask or request, but we needed her. We entered the house and asked for ISA, and some girl told us she had gone to her room. So, we went there. The door was closed, not completely shut, and the light was on. We knocked on the door, but nothing. The music was loud. We opened it a bit, peeked in with Adrian, and saw something really fucked up. ISA was there with a completely wasted guy, like, unconscious wasted, and ISA, being a total pervert, was kissing him. She wanted to fuck him, but the guy was practically dead, man. We saw that and were shocked. Did ISA notice you? No, man. She didn't see us. We just opened the door a bit, saw that shit, and closed it. It kinda scared us. I mean, at the moment, it made us laugh, but it's like rape, you know? The guy wasn't conscious, man. 5. I'm gonna tell you the story of the kid who shitted himself. This happened in Renka, a district that also borders Quinta Normal. The house where we went to party was like a 5-minute bus ride from where the guys from Quinta Normal live. Super close. The whole gang of friends went to the house of this guy named Henry. The same guy who got into Adrian's grandfather's bed. This was when we were like 19, around that age. We also went with Tommy's female cousins, who were younger than us. We started drinking and listening to music. Then we danced and everything. Adrian did something epic at one point. This dude walks like Che Copete. He has that characteristic. When he's really drunk and hyped up, he starts walking in these weird movements and climbs onto the couches in other people's houses. Kind of like a flake chaplain. I couldn't stop laughing. He's done this, from all the times I'd been there, like 2 or 3 times tops. There was this boy at the party who was younger than us. He must have been like 16, 17 years old. Around that age. This boy was like the typical kid who thinks he's cool, but you can tell he's just dumb. He was with a friend who was the same age but more laid back. We couldn't think of anything better to say to him than if he was so cool, he should start drinking. So we challenged him to drink with us. But back then, we were like a bottomless pit, dude. We would drink, puke, and keep partying. We didn't care about anything. There was a 3-liter bottle of some drink, I think it was Sprite, which was about half full. We emptied a nearly full bottle of vodka into it. It was a bad vodka. We served ourselves, but just a little. It tasted like shit, even for us at that time. So, we kind of surrounded the boy and told him that if he was cool, he should chug the rest of the bottle straight. We started chanting, eh. We encouraged the girls to join in so the dude would feel more comfortable. So, the boy takes the bottle and chugs almost the entire thing in one go. We all went crazy. Long story short, the boy started feeling sick shortly after. His friend also got wasted, so they went upstairs to bed on the second floor. We kept partying. About half an hour passed since they went to bed, and suddenly Henry shouted from the second floor, "Guys, come here. You have to see this." We all ran upstairs. I told the girls too. We all ran up without knowing what was going on. We arrived, and dude, the wasted boy was sleeping spooning with his friend, pants down, but still wearing his underwear, and there was a turd in his underwear. He was wearing these light gray underwear, and the turd was visible through it. We were like, "Wha?" And we started taking pictures, making videos, and the girls were dying of laughter. We made funny faces while taking pictures with his ass and the poop. We even turned on the lights to get better pictures. The boy kind of woke up, didn't realize much, pulled up his pants, and went back to sleep. We just left him there. Henry was so drunk that I think, even though it was his house, it didn't bother him. Maybe the boy was his friend or cousin. I don't remember if they were related in any way. We started sharing the videos and pictures among ourselves. Thank goodness no one uploaded them to the internet. That would have gone viral. But back then, we didn't use social media that much. It was messed up. We were mean, dude. Especially me, I was mean. Chapter 5. 1. Now I'm going to start telling you stories from school. As a child, I studied at a small school in Cerro Navia. Why there? Well, I lived with my grandmother in Cerro Navia when I was a kid. That's because my two parents were working and my siblings were already much older, so they couldn't stay and take care of me during the day. Of course, I would go back to Maipu on weekends. And during vacations and all that. The school in Cerro Navia was cool. It was small and all, but I met good people there. Despite all these years, I still keep in touch with my elementary school classmates. In fact, I have a classmate who is a professional football player, Javier Paraguez, who now plays for Colorado. Is he famous? Yeah, he's kind of famous, but more like a mediocre football player. He's not like Alexis, you know. Only the fans really know him. Exactly. The fans know him, but mostly for the jokes. When he falls or stuff like that, you know? He has this caricature-like persona because he misses goals, and people make fun of him on the internet. They call him El Cabezón, the big-headed one. Anyway, going back to the school, I joined INBA in 8th grade. INBA originally was in Quinta Normal, but later, for some reason, it became part of the Santiago district. It's right in front of the Quinta Normal station. I think I arrived before the station was built. Long time ago, man. I remember when I applied to INBA, I had to take an admission exam. At that time, they still had admission exams. I was so nervous. When I arrived, I found INBA so imposing, you know. It's huge, like an old university. It has many courtyards, big football fields, and lots of stuff. The National Boarding School Barros Arana. It's a boarding school? Yes. There were both boarding and day students. In my case, I was a day student. Some boarders lived very far away, so they stayed the whole year. Like Hotuatai, for example, who lived on Easter Island. The rest of the boarders who didn't live that far would go home on Friday afternoon and come back on Sunday. That's how INBA worked. Was he really named Hotuatai, or did they call him that because of the famous one? No, man, I'm talking about the real Hotuatai. The one from TV. He studied at INBA. I mentioned him as an example because he's famous. Ah, I see. I always remember the first day. I was all neatly dressed up. They even had to cut my hair because I used to keep it somewhat long. Since the middle of 7th grade, I started growing it out. I liked it because some football players had that style. I thought it looked cool, but when I entered INBA, I had to cut it. And wear a lab coat. My dad told me I had to behave well, you know? Because it was a prestigious school. That I had to take an exam to get in and all. I arrived a bit late at INBA, right in the middle of evaluation period. The thing is, I spent the first month of 8th grade at the school in Cerro Navia, and then I transferred to INBA. On my first day, I arrived during the second period. It was like they made me wait, and then they introduced me during that class. Nah, they didn't even introduce me properly. I just arrived and walked in. Didn't even say hi. I remember that when I walked in, the first thing I saw was Miguel at the board. He was wearing nerdy glasses and doing a really difficult math exercise. He was explaining the subject to the classmates. And Miguel was new too, you know. I walked in and saw those guys in their lab coats, Miguel with his blonde hair, doing scientific stuff, and I felt so out of place. I thought, what am I going to teach? I don't even know a thing. I remember that later that same week, we had a music test. We had to perform a song on the recorder in groups. I arrived on a Tuesday, let's say, and the test was on Friday. How was I supposed to learn to play an instrument in 2 days? The boys knew how to play. I had no clue. So I pretended to play by moving my fingers. It was like a playback, ha ha ha. That was my first impression. It was tough. The level of knowledge was very different from what I had at the other school. Plus, it was an all-boys school. I wasn't used to that. It was really challenging to adapt during the first year, but that's where I made my best friends. 2. It was in that school where my main group of friends was born. I remember we called ourselves Los Extremos because in an orientation assignment, they told us to form groups with our friends and come up with a name. We had to create an identity and choose a name accordingly. There were also Los Irreverents, Los Renegados, and La Legua Chica, who were like the flates in the class. We were Los Extremos because we were always doing extreme stuff. We would jump down the stairs, hang from the central hall, and do all sorts of crazy things. When we played football, we would go all out, like little kids. Look, there's a theater at INBA. It's really old and cool. It has these side stairs to go up to the second floor of the audience, but they were all broken. It was a mess. Like on the second day after I arrived, I saw a classmate sliding down those stairs using a flipped-over teacher's desk. Like a sled. It was really dangerous, man. I wanted to do it too, so I went up with the desk, prepared myself, and then the inspector showed up. Oh. And it was only my second day. I thought, my dad is going to be so mad at me. Then it was the usual stuff, alright, come down, youngsters. But I still went for it. I didn't care. How could I not do it if I had already been caught? After that, they took me to the office and wrote me up, but it wasn't anything serious. From that moment on, I started to behave. Well, I still misbehaved, but I became more discreet about it. That's why we called ourselves Los Extremos. Even to this day, we get together and go by that name. In our football team, in the group chat, and everything. My best friends are Los Extremos from school. Adrian, Victor, Busty, and Robledo. Although Busty didn't really do anything extreme. He was kind of timid. There is also the friends from university and work. People you meet along the journey of life. But the boys from school are like the foundation. So, were you hanging out with Adrian back then? Well, Adrian was part of Los Extremos, but we weren't really close friends at first. In fact, when we formed the Los Extremos group in the orientation class, Adrian wasn't with us. He was with other guys. I don't remember the name of their group. We would hang out occasionally because we played ball. He had his group, and we were Los Extremos. Later, as we got older, I started playing as a forward, and that's when Adrian started playing as a goalkeeper with us. That's when we started hanging out, going out partying, and that's when the Quinta Normal stories began. Is there another group that also kept their name? Yes.
La Legua Chica.
Our arch-enemies. Did you have a bad relationship with them or not at all? No, not at all. La Legua Chica were like the flates. They were chill boys. When we played ball, we would joke about facing each other, but there was never any animosity. We were just competitors, but always in a joking manner. 3. When we started first grade of high school, Victor arrived. He came from the United States, so he struggled to speak Spanish well. We used to tease him a lot. In fact, Victor once revealed to me that he didn't like me and he wanted to hit me because of how much I teased him. But we still became friends. Really good friends. Victor, Pepe, Busty, and me. Later on, Robledo and Eddie joined us. We had PE classes with the drunkard for almost all of high school, but back then we had Sad Face, who was a teacher that always had a sad face. And why was the drunkard called that? Well, I never really knew. I think he was just an old drunkard. Okay. Once we asked Sad Face how he was like in college. If he hooked up with his female classmates, how the trips were, and all that stuff. And that damn guy didn't find anything better to say than that he had crabs in college. He said that when he was in college, he had crabs in his chest hair. He told us that, and we were shocked. It was such an awkward response. Damn old jerk. With Sad Face, we would do exercises, the routine, and the last 15 minutes, we would play football. We would play against La Legua Chica. That's what I remember the most from that time. 4. In first grade, we had a language teacher named Acaranza. He was a tall old man. We used to sing to him, singing, Acaranza es nuestro peor enemigo, is our worst enemy. The guy would get angry. He had a quick temper. There was also Chapazar, Suckazar. Chapazar was a young inspector, around 22 years old. He was kind of nerdy. The guy had studied to join the PDI and got rejected. That rumor spread throughout INBA, and since he was young, everyone made fun of him. We were really mean to Chapazar. Why did you call him that? Well, the guy's last name was Salazar, and since he didn't get into the PDI, people started saying he had to suck dicks to get a job at the school. That's why they called him Chapazar. But it wasn't just us, the whole school called him that. And everyone would shout Chapazar when he was far away. And the guy would get really mad. He was tall but fat, and he grew a beard to look more respectable, but we didn't respect him at all. 5. We had a classmate, Figueroa, who was a guy about 1.90 meters. He was tall and fat. We were still small and skinny. And he was abusive, you know? He would hit the boys. And everyone would tease him, saying he had no friends. In fact, when we were naming the groups, nobody wanted to include him. In the end, he ended up with two guys from the class who didn't talk much, and they called themselves Los Irreverents. Figueroa was supposedly somewhat wealthy, and that motherfucker, whenever we were in history class and the teacher talked about something, he would say he had an uncle who worked in that field. Oh. He was so annoying. We would say, yeah, right, dude, shut up already, treating him like trash. There came a point where, before he even spoke, we would say, Figueroa has an uncle who works in that. Sometimes, Figueroa and I would take the bus together, and since I was new, he always wanted to be friends with me. I would keep him at a distance, like, yeah, sure, but I didn't want him to get too close. This happened on a Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. We were in the last class of the day, an orientation class. And, of course, chaos ensued after orientation. We were fooling around at the back of the classroom, Figueroa was fooling around with us, and then out of nowhere, he takes a marker and scribbles on my shirt. On the collar. Oh. And I immediately thought about my mom's scolding, you know? I couldn't go home like that, and I was more afraid of my mom than of this guy. I said, damn, why are you such an idiot? So, since I was a fan of wrestling, I went and did the paralyzer on him. How's the paralyzer? I'd have to show you a video. No, explain. Please. Alright. You kick the guy in the stomach, so he bends down, okay? Then you grab his head and slam him to the ground. But I just slammed him onto the table so that it would be a quicker impact. Figueroa fell face first onto the table and started to bleed from his nose. I really messed him up. That's when I thought, damn, this guy is going to beat me up, so I ran away. Later, when we were all leaving, I saw him looking calmer. He came up to me and apologized. Yeah, we still took the same bus and everything. He said, dude, I'm sorry for what I did, and I replied, alright, I got carried away too, but you still messed up, man. My mom is going to give me a hard time. And that's how it ended with Figueroa. After that, I never had any problems with him. But it was a good thing, you know. I fulfilled everyone's dream, hitting Figueroa and using a wrestling move on him. Did everyone dislike him? Yeah, dude. Almost everyone. Look, for example, in the class, there was Vasquez, the Peruvian, as we called him. He wasn't Peruvian, though. We called him that because he was black. That guy really disliked Figueroa and wanted to beat him up so bad. So, from first to second grade, during that summer break, that guy trained. He exercised, lifted weights, and came back really tough. He even grew taller, he had a growth spurt. But in the end, Figueroa had been transferred to another school, and he never got to fight him. 6. In our class, we always noticed that money would go missing after PE class. When it was time for PE, you would leave your belongings in the classroom to go to the gym, which was far away, and when we returned, someone's money would always be missing. But not much, just a Luca or 500. But since we never discussed it among ourselves, it would just be forgotten. There was a guy who worked as a cleaner. We called him Loda Schwager because he liked that team and would always shout, Loda Schwager. Loda Schwager, he was kind of retarded. He must have been around 37. 40 years old. Around there. Once, we were having PE class, and a classmate went back to the classroom to get something. He had been told to change his shirt or something like that. Suddenly, he comes running back to the gym and shouts, hey, come quick. Loda Schwager is stealing, he's going through our stuff, oh. And the whole class went running and beat up Loda Schwager. They kicked him in the ass and everything. We kicked him in the ass. After that, he got fired. That's how it ended with Loda Schwager. Chapter 6. 1. Then we moved up to second grade of high school. Back then, we were obsessed with playing ball. We used to play with mini Pepsi bottles as the ball. We would also make balls with paper and scotch. It was great. Every break felt like a classic match. We played and ended up all sweaty afterward. During that time, a lot of funny things happened because I started going out more. I would go to Adrian's place, and that's where all the stories of Quinta Normal began, in second grade. At that time, this guy was like an otaku. He wore those black jackets that were a mix between a samurai and a chef, ha. And he would come with his hair all gelled up, with bangs. He was such a Pokemon, that bastard. I also became closer friends with the others in my class. In fact, we all became friends with each other. Before, it was just little groups, but then the friendships in the class became stronger. We also met several guys who joined our class that year. Like Pobletti, for example. Pobletti was one weird dude, who's now a cop. He was a total liar. He would always claim to be hooking up with girls, but nobody believed him since he was such a wimp. That guy also claimed to be carrying drugs and stuff. Once, during break, we checked his backpack to see if he had any drugs. And guess what? He only had a bunch of medicines for some sickness. He had something like penicillin or penicil. Something like that. We made fun of him a lot. After that, the guy left. He completed second grade and didn't come back the following year. I don't know if it was because we made fun of him too much or not. I still liked Pobletti, but he was a big liar. 2. In second grade, another classmate joined us, Paul, who was a really gross jerk. Can you believe that he would jerk off during class? Behind the lockers. It was right around the time that song came out that says, "Look, Paul is jerking off." Ironic. We made fun of him so much. But besides that, he was also a bit of a thief. He was a really shitty guy, to be honest. One time, that asshole tried to steal a speaker from the school. Seriously. One of those big speakers that are about 4 feet tall. We were coming back from PE class, and we saw a big thing at the back of the classroom covered with a cloth. We checked, and it was the speaker. We asked him about it, and the guy said, no. It was just a prank and stuff. Around that time, things started to go missing in the classroom, but nobody knew what was going on. And how did you find out it was him? Well, he took it himself to the classroom. Several guys saw him. He didn't do it very discreetly or anything. And, well, I'm not sure if I'm making this up or not, but it seems like he said that someone had told him to leave the speaker there. Such an unbelievable story. Why would anyone ask him to that huge speaker in a classroom? Later that day, Victor starts shouting, "My glasses! Someone stole my glasses." Everyone in the class started looking for them, and we found them in Paul's locker. Then, that jerk said, "Oh, it was just a prank." The same excuse as with the speaker. It was messed up, man. It was an uncomfortable moment. Stealing glasses. Especially considering that Victor couldn't see a thing without his glasses. That's when we realized that jerk was domestic. The thing is, after that day, he never came back. Someone must have snitched on him. And I think he lived with his grandma or something. He had sort of drama going on there. A problem with his parents. I don't know. I almost forgot a really important detail. Paul was one of the boarding students. He stayed at the school from Monday to Friday. I think that's when he took the opportunity to do his things, and on weekends, he would go home to his grandmother's place. Oh, man, this is tragicomic. It turns out that after all that, his grandmother sent a letter to the school. Our homeroom teacher came to the classroom with the letter and read it to the whole class. It said something like, "Please, Paul is an innocent child. His parents." And the whole story. The letter was super emotional, man. The teacher finished reading and asked, "So, what do you think? Should little Paul come back or not?" And we all shouted, "No. He should leave," everyone, man. Except for a few friends of him. There were like 3 or 4 guys saying, "No. He should come back." And that was it, man. He was done. The guy was just too disgusting. I think the teacher came with the letter thinking, well, the classmates are going to say he should come back, give him a second chance, but there was an overwhelming majority. Yeah, imagine, what a hassle. Accepting him back and then being constantly worried about not leaving things in our backpacks or in the classroom, because the guy might steal again? Especially since we had already experienced the Lotus Schwager incident in first grade. Later, I think Paul studied at some flight school in Quinta Normal, where they sent students who got expelled from other schools. We still keep in touch with Paul's friends, but they never talked about him anymore. They have never said something like, "Oh, the other day we hung out with Paul," or anything. We haven't seen him on social media either. It's like the guy disappeared. 3. I remember when we used to go buy snacks during break, and all the guys were waiting for you to mooch off of you. It was always the same. And yeah, at first, I would make a big deal out of it, but as the years went by, I did the same thing. I would give out snacks, but I would also mooch a lot. And since I liked bringing sandwiches, I had to eat them secretly. I remember these chaparritas called Producto Navidad that they sold at the school kiosk. They were homemade and quite toxic. They came in cheap bags with a terrible print that would come off right away, like those typical artisanal alfajors. Those chaparritas were so gross. The cheese was kind of white, man, and the sausage looked green, rotten. But at that time, it was delicious, you know. When you're a kid, you just eat it and find it delicious. After playing ball, playing in the yard. But now I think about it, and it disgusts me. 4. When I was a kid, and I think it happened to you too, it felt weird to poop in a bathroom that wasn't yours, especially in public bathrooms. I was very particular about that, and I never pooped at the school. This thing I'm about to tell you happened because I was being a dumb kid. I remember that Fruna released alternative versions of all the famous candies. There was the Galazzo, Fantastic Goal, which I really liked. I always ate it with chocolate milk. Fruna released the alternative version called Cannonazzo, Cannonball Shot. It was the same thing. They sold them at the kiosk where I bought the Producto Navidad chaparritas and all that stuff. So, one day, I bought a Cannonazzo and a Galazzo to compare them. The Fruna version had lighter chocolate, but it tasted almost the same. I ate both with chocolate milk at school. After a while I was in class, I had a massive stomachache, and I had to go take a dump. But I didn't ask for permission, I just ran away. Because if they told me no, I would have to tell the teacher that I was about to poop myself. It's better not to. So, I just ran away. But the bathroom at INBA was shit. The boys would go there to smoke, it was all dirty and smelled of everything. And to make matters worse, there was no toilet paper, and my classmate, Pepe, gave me some tissues. I had told Pepe that my stomach hurt, and the bastard went to bother me in the bathroom. He asked the teacher for permission just to go bother me. He had a cold, so he had disposable tissues with him. Elite ones. I told him to stop messing around and give me some tissues. Well, it's a good thing he went to mess with you, then. Yeah, man. He saved me. When I came back, those jerks didn't want to shake my hand because they said I had a poop hand. What a bunch of idiots. And that's it, man. I think Canonazzo lasted for a couple of months, and then it wasn't available anymore. It must have been super toxic. It messed me up big time. And I was used to eating products like that. Marinilla products and all that stuff. 5. Second grade of high school was fun. Our group expanded. It wasn't just Busty, Pepe, Victor, and me anymore. Now we also had Adrian, Robledo, Eddie, we didn't know Cristobal yet, who was Eddie's brother, and Mora. But at the beginning, we used to tease Mora and Eddie. It wasn't really bullying, just playful teasing like school kids do, but we were still mean. I remember once we wrapped Mora in thick adhesive tape and threw him into a trash can at school. But the bin was empty. There was no trash. Then we went to class, and nobody remembered to take him out. It must have been about 10 or 15 minutes that Mora was there in the trash can. When we entered class, the teacher introduced the lesson, we were doing an activity, and someone, I don't remember who, suddenly said, Mora, and the rest of us were like Mora. Mora, then we asked for permission to go to the bathroom or something, and 2 or 3 of us went. We arrived, and Mora was still inside the trash can. When we got closer, we realized he was crying. Oh. And we regretted it a lot then. Although it was still funny. But Mora liked to tease too. Everyone said he was being bullied and all, but Mora would still join in the teasing. 6. I remember that in middle school, we had elective classes. We had to choose between arts and music. We had a female arts teacher who was really beautiful. She was young, slim, white, and had straight black hair. We tried to act cool around her. Once I went to ask her something, I approached her, and her breath smelled awfully like cigarettes, man. Like a wet ashtray. I think she had partied hard the night before. The music teacher, not the one who taught us, worked at Miranda con Compania. He was part of the show's orchestra. He was cool, man. I think he played the guitar. It was during the time when Miranda was at its peak. 7. That year, a trainee teacher came to do his professional internship. We called him Banano, Fanny Pack. Yeah, we were mean, man. He was a tall, skinny guy, and we called him Banano because he always carried a banana with him. He taught English. During exams, shamelessly, we would just stand up and copy from each other. Zero respect. We misbehaved and all, but when Banano finished his internship, we went to drop him off at Quinta Normal Station, which had just opened, and gave him a new banana that we had bought for him. That's how sweet we were, man. It was a gesture of gratitude. He was actually cool with us, and we liked him a lot, but we always misbehaved. Was it a cool banano, the one you gave him? Well, the thing is, he had this red, torn, and worn out banano. Like a typical trainee. So we gave him a cool black leather banano. Faux leather, but leather nonetheless. Then, the Undertaker came. He was our English teacher after Banano. We called him that because he looked like the Undertaker from wrestling. He was tall, had long black hair, and was kind of a metalhead. He had tattoos and all that stuff. In fact, I remember once he sang a song at INBA. The thing is, the Undertaker had a band, and they performed for an anniversary. They played a rock song. I think it was one by Pearl Jam, but I'm not sure. 8. Orostica and the big-headed Morrow were our classmates. Orostica had a kind of nasal voice, like Reddit in Squidward's voice, Orostica. That's how he talked, and the big-headed Morrow, he was big-headed and terribly ugly. Those guys were friends, inseparable. Once, in second grade of high school, Orostica lost 1,000 pesos, 1 luca, and the jerk told us to give him the money back. And then he went and snitched to the inspector. But none of us had stolen it, man. The inspector came, it was Chapazzer, and Chapazzer said that if the money didn't appear, we wouldn't be able to leave early. Someone had to go and deliver the money to the office. This was around the same time Paul was around. That guy who used to steal. Maybe it was him. In the end, nothing happened with the money. Even the last time we saw him, not too long ago, we would say, with exaggerated Squidward's voice, my Luca. Where is my Luca? They've stolen my Luca, we teased him a lot. Until the end. 9. Second grade was so much fun. I always remember, well, this isn't funny, the scene with our chemistry teacher who told us that she had lost her baby. Oh. It was really intense. The pain she expressed. Us, being kids and all. We were all quiet. 10. At the end of second grade, we went on a field trip to Paputo. It was the first time I went on an end-of-year trip of INBA. In 8th grade, I remember I didn't want to go. Was it because you were new? Yeah, well, I didn't really know the guys that well either. When I was a kid, I was shyer. I wasn't as outgoing as I am now. Well, I don't know if it was embarrassment, but I preferred not to go. Then, in 1st grade, I couldn't go on the trip. It was because my sister had made completos with homemade mayo the day before, and it messed me up. I got food poisoning. But in 2nd grade, I did go. I remember we went to some cabins in Paputo that belonged to INBA. But the moms were there, so we couldn't do anything. We were pretty restricted. Hey, is INBA an upscale school or something? No, man. It's a public school, but it's an emblematic one. That's why it has more facilities, cabins, and a bunch of stuff. Now, with the educational equality thing, emblematic schools and the regular ones are pretty much the same. Back then, there was a distinction. I don't know how things are at INBA nowadays. There were 2 cabins where we stayed. We split into groups of friends. Also, there was a bigger and nicer house a little further away, a bigger and nicer cabin where the moms were staying. The 2 cabins where we stayed weren't paired, but they were right next to each other. There was no separation in the yard, wall, or anything. In one of the cabins, the kids from La Legua Chica threw a smoke bomb through the window. It was at night. Busty was wearing long underwear, and he jumped out of bed hugging the pillow like a stuffed animal, scared, thinking the cabin was on fire. Some of the moms noticed the smoke and rushed in. Busty's mom was there, she was always attentive in case we messed up. She was really angry. We called her Sergeant Gomez. Was her last name Gomez? Yeah. We called her Sergeant Gomez because she scolded Busty and was strict. But she was still nice. How did you figure out that it was the boys from La Legua Chica who threw the smoke bomb? Because we went straight to the other cabin, and those guys were laughing their heads off. It was obvious it was them. During that trip, the boys got sunburned because, as usual, they went to the beach without using sunscreen. They were swimming all day. I remember going back to the cabin to get something, and the boys had tomato slices on their backs, all sunburned, watching MacGyver on Channel 9. They were roasting in the cabin. That trip was cool. Since the moms were there, we didn't go wild or anything, but we still had a good time. And that was 2nd grade. Chapter 7. 1. Now comes the transition from 2nd to 3rd grade. What was going to change, to make a difference, is that in 3rd grade, the whole class was going to come together. I mean, obviously, we all had our groups of friends, but we were all on the same page. We were all united. Plus, Eddie, whom we bullied, and Mora, the one we threw in the trash can, became friends with us too. They joined Los Extremos. That was pretty cool. The common enemy was going to be 4th grade. Why does that happen? Because at INBA, well, at least when I was there. I think it might have changed with the modern times, the 3rd and 4th grades had a rivalry. When you moved to 3rd grade, your enemies were going to be the 4th grades. In football matches, fights, and everything. We were going to clash with them. Not even with the other 3rd grades. In 3rd grade, viral videos and all that stuff started to become popular. YouTube. Because in 2nd grade, I remember Wayne 80 appeared, but it looked bad on old cell phones. In 3rd grade, with YouTube and Facebook, things started to get more fun. That year, we had Victor's uncle as our homeroom teacher, and he was crazier than hell. In fact, Victor doesn't like him, I think. Victor's uncle was always. No, I don't know if Victor doesn't like him, actually. But he was crazy. They said he would come and hit on the female teachers. We went to Paputo with him on the 3rd grade trip, which was the last trip we had as a class. That's when things went crazy. But I'll tell you about that later. 2. Back when we were younger, we had PE. With Sad Face. Once, we were watching Sad Face playing the big shot in the courtyard from the 2nd floor, and we shouted, "Hey, Sad Face, nice one." The old guy shouted back, "Alright, who called me Sad Face?" and he came to report us, man. The inspector came, but he just told us to stop messing around because they would never identify who shouted it. From 3rd to 4th grade, we had PE. With Drunkard, an old man who passed away, man. And we really liked him. He pushed us hard. He was from Valparaiso and traveled to INBA every day. He was the first to arrive and brought Valparaiso's freshly baked bread for all the teachers. We found out about that when we were older. He was awesome. He was an old man who seemed all laid back, but he did all the exercises, man. He jumped over the horse, ran, jumped over hurdles. He was tough. He died recently. Like 2 years ago. Do you know what he died from? Well, I never knew. They just told us he had died, but I didn't know the details. He was quite old though. When I was in school, he was already pretty old. The drunkard was cool. "How many reps left, sir?" "My Annie," he would say. And you'd be dead tired, man. At the beginning of the class, everyone would be messing around. While doing the exercises, you start fooling around, but then it gets so intense that you can't even talk. After exercising, we always went to play football. We did the exercises, the routine, and the last 15 minutes were for playing ball. Just like with sad face, but sometimes drunkard made us do a squat test at the end of class. The test was like, do 100 squats in a row. Or sometimes, 3 sets of 30, but with only like 5 seconds of rest. Then he would say, okay, go play ball, but your legs would be trembling, man. And the old man would laugh at us trying to play ball with trembling legs. He always said, half of you will leave school and become fat. I'll catch you eating sopapillas on the street. He was right about that, for sure. 3. There was a language teacher we called Sergeant Rojas. She was a short, red-haired, bespectacled, wrinkled, and strict old lady. That lady always demanded, read it in an extremely squeaky voice, the logbook, because we had to record everything in a logbook. Those old, big folders with squared sheets. Once she asked for the logbook, and I didn't have it. I went to the lockers in the back pretending to look for it. But I never found it, man. Oh. And sometimes she had me searching for it almost the entire class. There was also Mario Brothers, who was a chemistry teacher. We called her that because she wore overalls, had short hair, and looked like Mario, you know? And on top of that, she had a little mustache. There was Kenny, a chubby guy who played rugby. I think he started a rugby team at INBA. I wonder how that turned out. In 3rd grade, an inspector arrived, a man with long hair and a beard, and we said he looked like Marco Antonio Solis. Every time he passed by, we would singing, there's nothing more difficult than living without you. Dude, the whole class. The old man pretended not to hear us, but I bet he was thinking, you little brats. Since we were all doing it, he didn't say anything to us. 4. There was also Mr. Garay. He taught math and physics. One time, the guy did a metaphysics experiment. He said we could call people with our minds. The thing is, the teacher had taken attendance and noticed that Soto, a classmate of us, wasn't there. He had been there in the previous block, but now he wasn't. So he told us that we all had to call him with our minds. And we started doing it, all concentrated. After like 30 seconds, Soto showed up, and we were all shocked. Soto was probably in the bathroom. When we told him, he was shocked too. After that, the teacher talked to us a bit about metaphysics. It was pretty interesting, you know? In 3rd grade of high school, we didn't know about any of those things. Especially back then, when there wasn't as much information available as there is today. Garay was cool. He was a good teacher and very serious. He was always smoking. And I remember his wife passed away that year. He was very sad. 5. I remembered something. I don't know if you used that thing in school, that burning alcohol, like a fire that didn't really burn you and didn't last long. It kind of rings a bell. Well, one time, after a chemistry class, we started pouring burning alcohol on cotton balls, setting them on fire, and throwing them at each other like fireballs. Then this strict old lady, a teacher we had, saw us and said, "Oh, all right, I'm going to report you." I think she went to the school office and told the inspector to come quickly because we were throwing fire to each other. The inspector said, how could they be throwing fire, but the teacher couldn't explain it. So the inspector came and said, "Hey, Miss So-and-so said you were throwing fire to each other." We acted like we didn't know what he was talking about, and then the inspector just left. 6. In the back of INBA, the garbage truck used to pass by. It would take away all the school's trash. It was a lot, you know, INBA is huge. And when the gates opened, we would run away. It was super easy. We would always run away when the last classes were philosophy or boring stuff where the teacher didn't care much. Actually, we didn't care at all. We would run away whenever we wanted. But we organized ourselves. We would talk as a class and decide not to run away all at once because it would be too noticeable. Sometimes, after running away, we would meet up with the girls from the girls' school. At Quinta Normal Park. So, it was fun. Some guys, when they wanted to run away and the garbage truck didn't come, would climb the wall. We always started recording when there were guys who never ran away because sometimes they couldn't climb and they would fall flat on the ground. 7. In my 3rd grade of high school, I also played football. I played in a team coached by my dad. I was one of the youngest in the team. It was cool because sometimes the boys would come to watch me play. Victor, Pepe, you know? And then they would stay at my house. One time we were playing a championship match in Huchuraba. It was football. The league was called LUF, United Football League. Victor and Pepe came to watch me that time. My dad was there too, along with my sister and brother-in-law. When the game started, I went to the goal because the goalkeeper was late. The game was going smoothly. Then the goalkeeper arrived, and I switched positions. I played as a defender, a right back. There was this old guy from the other team. Well, I call him old, but he must have been around 32 at that time. I was like 16, man. He was old to me. I remember he was a gray-haired, short guy. This guy played as a forward. So the ball was passed to him, I chased after him, and he elbowed me. And of course, I felt the hit and fell to the ground. But the referee didn't call anything. Oh. I was so pissed off. He didn't score though. Later, the same thing happened. We were running, and he elbows me again. But this time, I didn't fall to the ground. I saw that the referee didn't call anything, so I went and gave him a strong elbow, man. I retaliated. I mean, it wasn't like I hit him blatantly, but I gave him an elbow just like the one he gave to me. I said, okay, now he's going to send both of us off, but then the referee only sent me off. He didn't send off the other guy. I always remember that the guy had such a mocking smile. I said, no way, man, this isn't going to end like this. So I went and started throwing punches. I beat him up. Then I saw one of his teammates approaching. I don't know if he was coming to separate us, but I started hitting him too. There were quite a few people in the audience. My friends, my family, everyone was watching. I was fighting with both guys, and then I saw this huge pig from the other team coming to hit me. Then my brother-in-law arrived, grabbed him by the neck, and threw him down. Then another guy came from behind and punched me right on the fangs. I fell to the ground. He made me bleed, and then they formed a barrier in front of me because the rest of the other team was coming to massacre me on the ground. I wanted to stand up, I wanted to hit the guy who punched me, and that jerk went and hid behind the other goal, man. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to hit them all. Then things calmed down, and since I was a minor, they had to take me to a local hospital. And it was rough around there. You know, there was a guy who had a knife somewhat stuck in his head. It was intense stuff. And I only had a cut on my lip. After everything happened, I started hearing a lot of stories. Like how my dad was about to jump in and then fell. How my sister went to stand in the barrier to protect me. How the boys were up in the stands messing around. It was chaos that day. 8. When we were in the 3rd grade, since we were an all-boys school, we started doing cardio. Cardio was like Tinder but before smartphones and social media. For example, let's say you belong to a boys' school and your girlfriend, or your girl, goes to a girls' school. Since you're a couple, you organize the cardio between the two classes. So, for example, you provide a list of names. Your friends, those you want to participate, and you give the list to your girlfriend. Then, your girlfriend shares the list with her classmates, and they would choose you. They would draw the names or something, without seeing your face or anything, and then they would write a letter. Like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I like this, that, and so on. Then, after a few days, the letters would arrive, and then you had to write whatever you wanted to them. If they didn't respond after that, it meant they didn't like what you wrote. Or maybe the person who organized the cardio told your girlfriend that you were fat or ugly. It depended on the goodwill of the person organizing the cardio. When they were jerks, they would say that a guy was lame. Especially if he got matched with an attractive girl. It was just out of spite or to make the attractive girls write to their friends only. For those who kept talking through the letters, after exchanging them 2, 3, 4 times, they would arrange to meet at a square or park. Both groups at the same time, and then they would talk. Some became friends, others started dating, and some didn't click at all. Sometimes, some guys would end up with girls from other cardios or some would get ignored. You see, you didn't know if you got matched with someone fat, skinny, short, tall, bald, ugly. You had no clue. It was a mystery. It was cool, man. I did cardio with Paula, and we became friends. I would go to her house, met her parents and everything. We still talk to this day. I became friends with her, but other classmates almost fell in love through the letters. And then the letters would arrive, and they would get matched with really bad-looking girls, man. Like really bad-looking. And the rest of us would be laughing our asses off. But I don't know, when you got matched with someone cool. It was pretty cool, haha. But yeah, that's how the system worked. Cardio was asterisk cool. 9. One day, we pretended that a classmate, Pepe, fell from the 2nd floor, and we recorded it. But the video was totally fake, you know. We got the idea because we had just finished playing football and 2 of us, me and Pepe, had the same football t-shirt. The guys filmed from upstairs in the classroom, pretending to throw Pepe out of the window. They had him by the legs. It was really dangerous, he could have fallen and gotten seriously hurt or even died. Someone shouted that the inspector was coming, they made a camera turn, and that's when supposedly Pepe fell, but it was actually me lying on the ground on the 1st floor. The camera focused on me as I was screaming in pain on the floor. And in the video, a classmate who was very flate says, "Oh, he fell, motherfucker, the video is on YouTube now. It's called Pepe's Fall or something like that." I don't know if you remember, but there used to be a website called Jade Finicon where they posted the first memes. And there we were, man. You'll see comments like, "I came here from Jade Finicon, is Pepe's Fall real or not? I'm in love with Pepe," and all sorts of stuff. Guess what? The video ended up on TVN. Yeah, like on news reports. The people at TVN put together a compilation of school violence videos to alarm parents, and in that compilation, they included the clip of us throwing Pepe from the second floor. But that video was all just a joke, you know? Completely staged. Who noticed that it made it to the news? I saw it, man. The boys did too. Remember how we used to watch the news before? Around dinner time with our parents. It was more common back then. Yeah, I remember. Chapter 8. 1. INBA, as I told you before, was divided into courtyards. There was the green courtyard, where 7th and 8th graders were, the orange courtyard, where 1st and 2nd graders were, plus the borders, and the yellow courtyard, which was the tough one because it had the 3rd and 4th grades. And there were a lot of 3rd and 4th grades. In the yellow courtyard, for example, we had basketball courts, a lot of them. Sometimes we used several courts to create one big football field. The matches were awesome because we also played during lunchtime, and it would get crowded. Everyone watching. It was like a stadium. The whole INBA would shake when the guys started messing around and jumping. For a final match, we played against the 4th graders team who called themselves the Yellow Submarine or something like that. Almost the entire school was watching the game. We were winning, and when the bell rang to go back to class, the game was over. By the way, I had a garbage bag on my head because I had long hair, and the inspectors were watching the game in the courtyard. I didn't want to be called to the inspector's office after class. Adrian was our goalkeeper. When the ball went out of bounds, Adrian would go get it, put it in the bathroom, and stay inside for like 3 minutes, pretending to look for the ball. It was just to waste time. The guys from the 4th grade were really pissed off. When there was little time left for them to ring the doorbell and for us to win, this guy from the 4th went alone towards the goal with the ball. Adrian was in the goal. I didn't trust Adrian, so I started running. I caught up to the guy and made a sliding tackle. He fell hard on the concrete. I messed him up. Then some guys got all tough. We wanted to fight too, we were childish. Vasquez, the guy who had prepared to fight Figueroa, wanted to fight with those guys. But the others started separating us, and that's how it ended. They took the free kick, the ball ended up back in the bathroom, Adrian took as long as he could, they rang the bell, and we won. We came out victorious, man. Afterwards, when we went up to the 2nd floor, because the 4ths were on the 1st floor, the other 3rd grades applauded us and all. It was like we earned their respect. We beat the 4th grades. No one could beat us anymore. Then they suspended the matches because too many fights were breaking out. The boys fought a lot. Well, myself too. So, the inspectors decided it was better not to do anything. They weren't going to be watching whether the little kids were going to fight or not. 2. Hey, was Vasquez kind of violent or not? Ha ha ha, yeah. Not with us, but the guy was violent. He liked to fight. And did he really fight or was it all talk? Yeah, he did. Look, in INBA, they set up the INBA radio. It was like a radio station in a small room at INBA, like an office, where there was a computer connected to the courtyard speakers. Everyone could play music, make requests. You had to go to the room and ask for a song. Some kids controlled it. They took turns. The student council oversaw everything. Once, when we were in 4th grade, there were these younger kids, like 8th or 1st graders, in charge of playing the music. No, they weren't that young. They were like 2nd graders. The thing is, Vasquez gave them his phone to connect it and play some songs. We were outside, playing basketball. Later, I went to get the phone with him, and he saw that the younger kids were looking at some pictures of him doing Olympic wrestling. That guy liked doing Greco-Roman wrestling, you know, that thing where you do holds on the ground. The kids were laughing at the pictures. And, damn it, man. This guy went up to them and started throwing punches, like Pa. Pa. What are you laughing at, you bastards? And the kids were like no, he hit them, took his phone, and left. The kids stared at me, and I said, well, why are you guys dumb, ha? That was my explanation. They deserved it in a way. That's how Vasquez was. He was crazy, that bastard. 3. When we had PE class, we had to change in the bathroom, and the walk back to class was really long. To get back to the classroom faster from the field, we took a shortcut through the bamboo courtyard. That place was like a trap because there was a huge hole. Well, not huge, but like 2 meters deep, and it was only covered with some branches. We weren't supposed to go through there, you know. Sometimes, during that transition, we would hide in that courtyard and skip class. We had a classmate we called Pendula. That was his last name. And we started calling him Penela or Penisla and all sorts of stuff like that. We created a character, like Pendula was the penis king. He would walk around shirtless, with some bamboo branches on his head, and we were his hunters. When the younger kids, the 8th and 7th graders, would come by, the penis king would shout, and we would go hunting them down. Like savages. How did he shout? He would scream stuff like from the jungle. Like oh boo 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 or stuff like get them, or after them, like in the movies. And when we caught the younger kids, we would put them in the hole as a sacrifice to the penis god. Ha ha ha. We told them that to get out of the hole, they had to perform Penis King's penances. If they resisted, one of them would get tough, we would grab the bamboo sticks and start poking them. At that time, reggaeton was really popular, you know. It was just starting and all that. The pansio and everything. So, we told them to dance reggaeton, and sometimes we made them pancier. To give each other a peck. And when they did it, we would say, "Oh, you guys are such queers, it was just a joke," and they would turn all red. And then we let them go. Sometimes some of them managed to escape, but we all went after them and hunted them down anyway. They didn't know which grade we were in, so they were screwed. They couldn't report us. 4. The bamboo courtyard was right in front of Quinta Normal Park. It was like, let's say, the front yard of INBA. Once we were with some classmates. They were smoking. I didn't smoke at that time. It was tobacco, by the way. The thing is, there were 2 girls from another school in the park. They had probably ditched class. At one point, we noticed they were looking at us, so just for fun, we started doing things like in American Pie. At that time, American Pie 3 and all that shit were popular. We took the towels from PE class and started moving around, dancing, doing the pirate ship thing. We pretended to flex our muscles and stuff like that. And the girls played along, you know. They laughed and started smacking each other's butts and all. We were doing that when suddenly, out of nowhere, the inspector for the 7th and 8th grade showed up. He was a dark-skinned old guy. He was smoking a cigarette. He looked at us, we looked at him, and we thought he was going to give us a hard time for not being in class. But no, he just kept walking. I think the guy either didn't want to bother us or was having a bad day. We burst out laughing. Then we had to go back to class. 5. Speaking of inspectors, there was this general inspector. Little Barra, they called him. He was a short, graying old man, and he had a bad temper, you know. He had a bad reputation for being grumpy. Actually, going back to 8th grade for a bit, once we were fooling around in class, and the teacher went to report us. Then, little Barra showed up and slapped the teacher's desk so hard that it hurt him. We found it funny because the old man was in pain, you know. He started shouting, "What the hell do you think you are, you damn brats?" Until when, he started treating us really badly, and we just stayed quiet. Then he left, nursing his hand. Going back to 3rd grade, as we were older, we started hearing stories about the school, you know. Things that the boarders would tell. The boarders would say that there was a legend that they caught little Barra having sex with one of the cooks. Right there, in the kitchen. I never knew if it was true or not. Then, when we went to the cafeteria and they served us soups and things that were kind of white, we would say it was little Barra's semen. 6. Once, I and a bunch of classmates got called to the inspector's office. We were the troublemakers, the ones did all sorts of stupid things, and they gave us a scholarship. It was a scholarship to eat in the cafeteria. But they never gave us a reason. We weren't poor or anything. So, we said it was the Good Vibes Scholarship. To enter the cafeteria, you had to wear the lab coat. Well-groomed and all that. We would go with disgusting coats. We would borrow them from our classmates, from the ones who didn't go. When were you supposed to wear the lab coat? According to the rules, we always had to wear the lab coat, but during recess, we would take them off. To play. And, in reality, we hardly ever wore them. The younger kids always wore them. The older ones took them off. We weren't bothered much about it. But to go to the cafeteria, they made us wear it. The guy in charge of the kitchen was this guy, Rigoberto. He was around 34, 35 years old. He had short hair, kind of tall, and a bit chubby. Like the drug dealers, ha ha ha. But he wasn't flate. He was responsible for making sure the cafeteria service went smoothly. Rigoberto would stand there showing off his penis. We would say he stuffed a sock in his underwear. And he would flirt with the kitchen ladies, who were all Peruvian women. When we went to get the food, we would say, "We want to eat. And we want Rigoberto's cream for dessert, we want Rigoberto's cream, ha ha ha." The guy would get really mad because he knew we were teasing him. 7. This is towards the end of 3rd grade. You see, when the 4th graders are about to leave INB, well, I don't know if it still happens, things might have changed with the modern times, there used to be something called the blacklist. A list of the troublesome guys in the school, and they would be beaten up. They would mess with them before they left. All the guys who were snitches would end up on the blacklist. The ones who accused others, the ones who did some stupid shit, those guys always got listed. It was funny, man. They would come in, pull the guys out of the classroom, and all that stuff. You had to protect yourself as best as you could. But it wasn't like they would punch them or anything too intense. They would just shake them up for a while. It was like a mini hazing. When we were in 3rd grade, they put us in the list. Well, not exactly. We weren't on the blacklist, but they messed with all the classes. We were prepared because in 3rd grade, we knew they were coming. Especially because when we played ball, we would hit them. The guys were pissed off at us. So, we made a barricade at the door. This was on the 2nd floor. When the guys tried to enter, we threw chairs at them. It was intense. I'm sure more than one got hit by a chair. The inspectors realized we were causing too much trouble, so the guys gave up. That's how we got away. The 4th grade guys got messed up. We were slick. For us, when we moved up to 4th grade, it was going to be awesome. We were going to make a blacklist and everything, man. We were practically going to own the school. 8. At the end of the year, we went to Paputo again. It was our last class trip. This time we didn't go with our moms like the previous trip. Some dads came along, and Victor's uncle, who was our homeroom teacher. I remember we went and met some girls at the beach. They were just fooling around. One night, the dads were getting wasted with Victor's uncle, so we took the opportunity to hang out with the girls in the cabins. I remember the cabins had 2 floors, and it was hard to get to the 2nd floor because you had to use a wooden ladder. It was a hassle. So, we were fooling around, and one of our classmates went with a girl to the 2nd floor. Suddenly we heard screams, moans. We said, "Oh, the dude did it." Then they both came downstairs, and the girl was super angry. We asked her what happened, and she said that the guy pulled her hair. And that's why she was screaming. Why was he pulling her hair? Did you catch that? What happened with Carlitos? He was small, that's why we called him that. And had a squeaky voice. The motherfucker is that the guy probably didn't have much experience, you know. It's like he wanted to caress her hair, but he did it too roughly and pulled it. It was unintentional. We had a great time. We would go for a walk on the beach at night, and then something happened to my feet. Like some stigmata. Blood started coming out, and I couldn't walk. Both my feet were bleeding a lot. They got all dry. I don't know what happened. What did you do then? I used povidone. The stuff you used to heal wounds back then. There was a first aid kit. It hurt a lot, and it formed a scab. But it healed over time. Everything was going fine on the trip until some of our classmates got arrested because they were caught smoking marijuana. They were taken to the police station. I don't know if they were kept locked up or not, but then Victor's uncle had to go get them with some parents. The thing is, that became known in the school, and they fired Victor's uncle. Because it happened under his supervision. That's how 3rd grade ended. I think it was the best year of all in school. Every year had their own experiences, but in 4th grade, you worry about the university entrance exams and all that, even though we still had a good time. But 3rd grade was great because there were no worries. It was like the last carefree year. It was awesome. Chapter 9. 1. Being in 4th grade was awesome because you were at the top of the pyramid. You were like the king of the jungle because you bossed everyone around, made a blacklist at the end of the year and would beat up anyone on it. The younger kids had to do what you said, and the teachers respected you more. It was the time of our lives. We also started having more responsibilities because the subjects got harder. Plus, the PSU was coming up. Many of us went to prep courses and all that stuff. For me, that year was tough academically because it's not like I did badly, but it was really intense. I would leave school at 4:30, go home, have lunch, then I had to be at the prep course at 7, and I would come back really late. During the year, we started WINBA, which was wrestling. There were several wrestling fans in our class, fans of WWF, WWE. So, we created our own version of wrestling called WINBA. We did it in a hidden gym on the 2nd floor. We recorded ourselves, and made a big fuss out of it. During the first few days of the year, the 7th graders arrived. To show the new parents that everything was fine with the school, the inspectors would arrive earlier. If you had long hair, painted nails, a piercing, or anything like that, they would send you back home. At the beginning of 4th grade, Vasquez showed up with a shaved head. He usually had short hair, but never shaved. I think he was entering the school, this is what I was told, and the inspector stopped him and said, "Hey, you, let your hair grow, you look ugly bald." They told him that, ha. 2. During that time, cell phones with cameras appeared. They had a maximum capacity of about 1 minute each video. Since we were Los Extremos and did all sorts of extreme stuff, we started recording the things we did. At that time, Jackass was popular, and we would go and tease the younger kids in the green playground. We would approach a little kid, someone had to be recording, and let's say I would tell him, "Hi," we would hug them, "Hi, I'm Emerson Silva. And this is Jackass," and I would hit him in the nuts. We did stuff like that. We were really mean, dude. I always remember one time, there was a little kid. Another kid was pushing him, teasing him. This little kid was angry but didn't defend himself. So, I went up to him and said, "Oh. Did you hear what he said about your dad?" And the little kid responds, read with the voice of a grumpy little kid, "What did he say?" And I said, read with cartoonish voice, "He said your dad is a bitch," and it was a lie, of course. But this little kid went crazy and started beating up the other kid. Then the inspector came to separate them, and we ran away. There was also a little kid who had a comedian's face. We would always grab him and tell him to tell us a joke. He had to tell us a joke to be let go. Just because he had a comedian's face. What do you mean by comedian's face?
Like Bombo Fica, Dino Gordillo.
Something like that. Ha ha ha. There was also a little kid named Irutia. He was chubby, and we said he was like a teddy bear. Every time he appeared, we would say, Oroyuyushia. And we would go and hug him. Once, Irutia, the little fucker, snitched on us because we hid his calculator. We placed it, instead of on the table, we put it in his locker. Irutia started crying because he couldn't find his new calculator, and we had just switched it from his desk to his locker. But how did you do it? Did you enter his classroom? Yeah, we did. They were like 8th graders or something. Since they were little kids, they didn't say anything to us. Then, one of Arutia's classmates comes to our classroom and says, "The inspector is calling Vasquez to the office." Vasquez goes. After a while, he comes back to the classroom and says, read with an awkward stage voice, "Emmy, and some others, the inspector is calling you." He snitched on us, man. We went to the inspector's office. The inspector was a chubby guy, kind of young, and the inspector goes, "Hey, we thought he was going to scold us." He says, "Hey, stop bothering this little kid, dude, he's such a crybaby, always accusing. So he won't have problems with his parents." We burst out laughing. Urrutia would complain to his mom. So, the inspector would receive complaints that the older kids were giving him a hard time. But we didn't really bully him. Urrutia was a crybaby. After that, we still teased him. We would hug him and say, "Uruyutia." Sometimes the kid would get angry, sometimes he would give up, but we never hid his things again. 3. When we were doing all those jackass things, I got caught with long hair and they sent me to cut it. I told the hairdresser to cut it, but just a little, and she gave me a toilet bowl cut. Plus, for my sister's recent wedding, I dyed my hair blonde. So, I looked like Nick Narter. Peruvian Nick Carter, ha ha ha. One day we finished classes and went to take the bus. We took it at Estacion Central. When we got on, there were those annoying clown guys who would get on and do routines. Those who tease people. I remember there was a group of college kids in front of us, and the clown guy goes and says, "Look, there's Team Mecano, Chichuca, 8. He started teasing them like that, and I thought, oh, this guy is going to make fun of me when he sees how I have my hair. And he says, "Oh, and they come with Brad Pitt." Peruvian Brad Pitt. I couldn't help but laugh, man. 4. Like in May, June, around that time, we had the school anniversary. It was cool because girls' schools also came. There were like 2 or 3 girls' schools, they let them in, and it was all fun. We formed teams, played ball, and everything. The anniversary lasted only one day, though. From morning until around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We were the gray team. Did the students choose the name? No, it was just colors. There was the red team, the blue team, the green one, and we ended up with the gray one. I always remember that on the anniversary day, I arrived a little late because I had to do a rehearsal at the prep course or something. The thing is, when I arrived, I went into the classroom, and the first thing I saw in my locker was a bunch of alcohol that the boys had put in there. Rum Mitchens, Ron Limon, just really bad stuff, dude. We started drinking and messing around, so I couldn't play football. I remember Busty played as the goalie. We were playing against the 4th B class. In 4th grade, we didn't really fight with the other 4th grade classes. We were more united, you know? We focused more on teasing the other grades. The first image I have is us drinking a lot. We were drinking in the classroom, hiding, and then I went out to the courtyard, saw a high ball, Busty missing it, and we lost. Then there was a competition of who could eat the most completos. Victor participated and almost won. He was beaten by a 7th grade kid. A chubby one. That damned kid ate like a pig. You know, Luli also came to that anniversary. It was around the time when she was just starting to become famous. When she was with Felipe Avello on SQP and acted all dumb. When she wore that pink suit and did the dance of the koala thing. And why did she come? She came to dance, man. It was like a topless thing. I mean, she didn't take off her clothes, but she was wearing those dancer panties, shiny bras, and she was right there in front of everyone. The students, the inspector, the teachers, everyone. The anniversaries were fun. I remember that for one anniversary, Glup performed. And I didn't go, man. I regret it a lot. It was like during the 8th grade anniversary, I think. In a moment I got really sick from drinking so much. I remember waking up and some girls were giving me cake to revive me. I was a mess. Then we had to choose the queen for our team. The C class, which was the red team, had like a she-devil, a skinny girl. The blue team had, I don't know. A mermaid, I think. And they were hot girls, you know. I mean, it sounds perverted, but they were the hot girls back then. We, being the gray team, couldn't figure out what to do. Plus, there wasn't a single skinny cute girl, so we proposed that our queen be a hippopotamus. But the girl we had chosen didn't want to. She felt offended. Well, it's fine, yeah. In the end, we didn't have a queen. We were the worst team. The only thing we did with the team was carry a giant gray cloth. We would grab the little kids in groups, wrap them up, and squeeze them tight. We teased them like that in the courtyard. I remember that on that day I went home feeling terrible. I went to vomit at Quinta Normal Park. Then, on the bus, I was falling asleep. I went with a friend, Marmota. Or maybe it was Victor. I don't remember. And that's how the anniversary ended. We didn't win anything, man. We lost at everything. Busty played football and missed the goals, Victor lost in the Completo eating contest, we didn't have a queen. But it was good, yeah. We had a hell of a time. 5. Hey, I forgot to tell you about a classmate who has a lot of stories. A classmate who looked like Evo Morales. His name was Elias Canilio, and he was like Mapuche. His name was Canilio, it was obvious, and he would get angry when we teased him because he was Mapuche. And since he looked like Evo Morales, we called him Canilivo. How mean. Yeah, dude. Canilio has a ton of stories. Like one time, when we were in class, he went to the bathroom and took forever. This was like in 8th grade. And when he came back, Victor's uncle, who was our teacher at the time, said, "What took you so long? Were you busy using your hands?" It was like he was insinuating he was masturbating. And the fucker started crying. Like he felt super offended. And what did Victor's uncle do? Nothing, man. He just laughed. Not anymore, though. Nowadays, they record you, and you're screwed. Back then, teachers would just laugh at how dumb the kids were. And guess what? That guy ran for counselor a few years ago. And how did it go? I don't think he won. And that time when Canilio said, read it with a very effeminate and tired voice, "Stop, please." Once, when Drunkard was making us do exercises, Canilio was so exhausted that he couldn't take it anymore but didn't want to fail, you know? So the dumbass came up with the brilliant idea to be all messed up and say, "Stop, please." But it came out with this really faggy voice because of the effort. Dude, imagine us. Laughing our asses off, trying to do the exercise, holding back the stomach pain. Then we would tease him when we were on the bus. Do you remember that in the old buses, you had to tell the driver when you wanted to get off? So when we were with Canilio and had to get off, we would shout, with that voice, "Stop, please." That's how we teased him. I have another Canilio story. Someone told me this one. When we were in school, like in the 3rd grade of high school when you start dating, hanging out with girls and all that stuff, Canilio had a girlfriend, you know? In another girl's school. So, some guys from our class took advantage of that and started a cardio. The thing is, Canilio's girlfriend had told her friends that Canilio was like the hottest guy in our class. That he was almost like Brad Pitt. And, dude, I think when everyone met, the girls burst out laughing when they saw Canilio. And the girl, Canilio's girlfriend, was like, "Hey, why are you laughing? What's going on?" She just didn't get it. Imagine, the boys telling that story in the classroom, everyone laughing their asses off, and Canilio right there. But why would she tell her friends that? I know beauty is subjective, but dude, look at this guy. Not even God would find him beautiful. Ha ha ha. Well, that's about Canilio. I destroyed him, ha ha ha. The guy is ugly, but he must have his charm. Canilivo. The last time I saw him was at Eurocentro. It was around the time of the social outbreak. Somewhere around there. We said hi and everything. He looked the same. Had the same Evo Morales face. Nothing had changed. And you know what I noticed about him? He kept saying that he was going to see some chicks. Like he wanted to prove that to me. I was like, okay, sure. And I think I was just looking for a PlayStation game, haha. I also remember there was an inspector when we were in 3rd grade, and his name was Cantilef. He was Mapuche and looked just like Canilio, so we used to say he was his dad. Just around that time, there was this gay guy on TV, Andres Canulef, so we called the old man Hey, Canulef, and then we would change his last name all the time. We called him Mr. Antilef, Canualeo, and the old man never got angry. In the end, that man was the one who gave us the Good Vibes Scholarship. The one to have lunch at school. And we used to make fun of him so much. Chapter 10. 1. Around mid-4th grade, we started planning our end-of-year trip. We collected money from the whole class to buy wholesale candies and go out to sell them. The thing is, on Machacana, where the school was located, there were several liquor stores and candy distributors. It's not as common now, but back then, it was a typical way to raise money for a class trip. But in the end, it never happened because that idiot big-headed Maro stole the money. Just like that. The thing is, in 4th grade, we were super disorganized. We were really close, but disorganized when it came to doing things like trips and stuff. And on top of that, Adrian was the class president, and I was the vice president. Really? Yeah, man. I had forgotten to tell you about that. We ran for president and vice president, but just to mess around. To skip classes and all that. And we got elected, man. The thing is, we also made big-headed Maro the treasurer just to mess around. That's where we screwed up, haha. We had the typical system where, when we wanted to buy something or do something as a class, all the classmates had to contribute with a fee. But, typical, not everyone ended up paying. With the money collected, big-headed Mara went to buy the candies, started selling them at school, and then kept the money for himself. And he kept the leftover candies too. Orostica, who was his best friend in class, once told me that they were at his house, and big-headed Maro stole something for his cell phone. A lanyard, that's what they are called. They're like straps to hang your cell phone and cards. This guy had one with a cool design. After stealing it, a day passed and this guy went to return it to Orostica's house and apologized. So, this jerk had some weird things going on, you know? After high school, we never saw him or hear from him anymore. Afterward, we still wanted to do an end-of-year trip, but nothing happened because the parents were disorganized. No one really cared, to be honest. We couldn't even make our class hoodies. The hoodies. I just remembered a great story. In those years, it was becoming popular to make customized hoodies for senior year. It had been popular for like 2 or 3 years. We wanted to have our hoodies, but we were so disorganized. And the parents too. It was like they were more concerned about the college entrance exam and other stuff. In the end, we never made a decision to get the hoodies. It's like everyone wanted different things, and we couldn't agree on anything. The thing is, Victor, Robledo, Busty, and Mora, that group of fuckers, still wanted to have the hoodies. They wanted to make them in the same colors as the INBA tracksuit, which is red, blue, and a bit of white. But instead of hoodies, they ended up getting windbreakers. They came one day with them, and we started saying they looked like Transantiago bus drivers. They wore them a couple of times at school, and then they stopped wearing them again because we made fun of them so much. I think they threw them away because they never wore them again. 2. One day, after school, we went with the guys from La Legua Chica to hang out at Quinta Normal Park. We sent a representative from Los Extremos, Adrian, and a representative from La Legua Chica, Marmota, to the liquor store to buy a cheap bottle of rum while the rest of us sat on the grass. After a while, they came back, and the bottle wasn't full. It looked like they had drunk some, and the boys said they had done it. We started drinking from the bottle, passing it around. Everyone drank. All of us, including Adrian and Marmota. After everyone drank, Adrian and Marmota started laughing their asses off. We were like, what the hell? What happened? What did you put in the booze? You didn't put anything in it because you guys drank too. And then those idiots said that when they left the liquor store, they walked about a block and there was a drunk old man almost with his pants down who asked them for some booze. They gave it to him, the old man took a swig from the bottle, and they didn't clean it, man. And we all drank from it, including them. 3. In the second semester of senior year, when we were a chaotic bunch, we started the Winba project. We would recreate wrestling fights and choreographies in the classroom and record them. Almost all the boys participated. Vasquez, also known as the Peruvian, would take off his shirt to make his entrance. Busty would be the interviewer and the referee. Sometimes we even brought the janitor's ladder to use in our wrestling matches. We recorded everything, and then Adrian would edit the videos. We added music and commentary, and they turned out great. The videos would start with the typical message of "Don't try this at home," originally in English, but instead, it said, "Don't try this at house, man." Ha ha ha. And that's how the Winba project was born. It helped a lot that Adrian knew how to edit videos. I don't know if the videos are still on YouTube. It's been a long time since I watched them. Years. Adrian later studied film at INACAP Institute. That's where he met Mudito. Let me digress a bit with Mudito's story. Jumping ahead a year, Adrian enrolled in film school at INACAP, and he had a classmate they called Mudito, who is now our friend. I don't know why they called him Mudito, little mute guy, since the guy talks a lot. I mean, just the normal. Mudito had this flate style back then. Well, he wasn't really flate, but he dressed like one. He had his Chaka Panda, and he was always dressed in basketball clothes. From what I heard, he wouldn't say a word in class. Nothing. That's when Obel, another classmate of Adrian, tried to integrate him. To integrate him into the class, Obel went up to Mudito and asked, "Hey, Mudito, yeah, they already called him Mudito by then, hey, Mudito, can you lend me a pen?" And Mudito thought he was teasing him or something, I don't know, and he replied, "TCH. I ain't your bitch." I think everyone burst out laughing. And that's when Mudito joined the group. YouTube was emerging at that time. It was at its peak. In fact, I think we watched the first YouTube video in our 3rd grade. I always ask people about this because everyone remembers the first video they watched on YouTube. It's really strange. Do you remember the first video you saw on YouTube? No, not at all. No? Well, the first video I saw was called The Olympics of I Don't Know What the Hell. A few of us classmates watched it on the computers at the Santiago Library. It showed an old man from India standing on a rock, on a cliff, and then he jumps. And he falls flat on the ground. There were no reactions or anything. That was it. And the video ended. I was shocked, man. I don't know if the video was real or not, but at that moment, I was shocked. It was like the scene from Midsummer, but this video looked lower quality, obviously, and it was recorded from a greater distance. I saw that and said, what a weird thing, man. Why? I don't know if the video was a hoax or what, but it looked super real. In senior year, YouTube was booming. So the kids from school started watching our videos, and we became famous in the school. They called Adrian Triple H and me X-Pac. Why did they call you that? Well, in the videos, we would imitate the characters. The ones from WWF, WWE. That's why the kids recognized us later on. We had a chemistry class on Thursdays or Fridays, last period. We didn't like that class. The teacher was strict. One time, me and Pepe were fooling around, and the teacher came to us and said, "Hey, I bet you guys don't know a thing about the test. I guarantee you'll get a 2, she was being really harsh." Pepe and I were shocked. And we made a commitment, we swore to study for that test just to prove her wrong. The day of the test came, and we got like a 1.5, man. We did terribly. We didn't know a thing. The teacher was right, ha ha ha. The thing is, sometimes, we would escape from that class, and one day we discovered a hidden gymnasium. Well, not that we discovered it. We knew there was a gymnasium, but we couldn't enter because it was dangerous. It was an old gymnasium with a wooden floor. Think about it, INBA was from like 1900, 1910. It was older than hell. In that gymnasium, there were broken pieces of wood, the staircase was falling apart, so it was a disaster. If you climbed the stairs, you could fall, get all broken, or even die. I think Vasquez knew about the gym because once he had to take out some mattresses from there or something. I don't remember very well. The thing is, we knew there was a gym, but passing through was prohibited. The gym was cool, though. It had a wooden floor and was on the second floor. There were mattresses, tables, chairs, everything. So we set up a makeshift wrestling ring with tables in the corners and mattresses on the floor. That's where we made WinBA, Summer Slam, the hottest event of the summer. There was like a door with a black curtain where the wrestlers entered. Very cool. We filmed it with the whole entrance and everything. Besides, Adrian had become much better at editing. There were some errors in the videos, though. For example, our classmates would be in the audience in the beginning of the Summer Slam video, but halfway through, they would disappear. It's because they had gone to the chemistry class. Sometimes the younger kids would ask if they could participate. The 7th graders, 8th graders, 1st graders, and we would say yes. We would take them to the gymnasium sometimes, and they would be like the rookies, the beginners. We would make them do physical tests and everything. It was hilarious. There was this one kid who was. Well, he wasn't attractive in terms of looks. He was ugly as shit. And we would tell him that he was the boogeyman. That was his character. We would tell him to scream like the boogeyman. Like, Rayerg, and the kid would do everything we said. We had a great time. Adrian had those videos, but I don't know if he still has them. There was also this kid who looked like Luis Jimenez, a football player. We would shout, "Luis Jimenez."
Luis Jiménez.
But those videos got lost. They were never uploaded. We wanted to make a lot more videos, but we ran out of time. The year was ending. 4. Towards the end of senior year, it was all just messing around. Like when we would go to lunch with the boys, making fun of Rigoberto, the one we said stuffed a sock in his package, and we would say, "Woohoo. Hi, Rigo." And Rigoberto would get angry. Then we would ask Rigoberto, read with a cartoonish effeminate voice, to spread cream on our jelly. Instead of creating a blacklist and all that, we would tease the younger kids. We would grab that one kid who seemed like a comedian and wouldn't let him eat until he told us a joke. We would hug Urrutia. It was all just messing around. The younger kids would line up for lunch, and we would start kicking basketballs, man. We would pretend that there was a goalkeeper, someone else would kick the ball, the goalkeeper would dodge it, and it would hit the younger kids. Sneaky bastards. The younger kids who were a bit tough, we used to tease them too. We would make them do the surfboard. We would make them climb on the teacher's desk, which was a big wooden table, then we would move it and they had to do a surfer move to avoid falling. Sometimes we would do stuff like that or tie them up with the gray team cloth that we had kept. 5. That's how the year was coming to an end. In senior year, the final PE test was dancing Quaker. And it's an all-boys school, man. It was hilarious. It was the last grade we got in PE. At INBA, and we just had to do it. One had to play the woman's part, and then we switched. The old man, drunkard, didn't care. He laughed his ass off. I got a 7, top mark, ha ha ha. Finally, I remember that the school inspector called me, like at the end of the year, to tell me to cut my hair and dye it right away, or else I wouldn't graduate, and they wouldn't give me my diploma. I told my parents that I didn't want to do it, that I'd rather miss the graduation because, I let my hair grow all year just to cut it again, and then, right when I was about to leave school, I told the inspector that I would let my hair grow long. And that I would dye it white, man. Look, I was ahead of my time. White hair is popular now. And well, I didn't go to the graduation, man. I just didn't go. But I did attend the gala. There, Quentin, who was our head teacher, a short guy, gave me a graduation pin and the diploma and all that stuff. He said I should have gone anyway. That they would have let me in, it was just a protocol thing what they told me. But still, why bother? Imagine going all dressed up with my family and then being told I can't enter. No way. And that's it, man. Memories of the graduation, well. The gala was kind of lame. Kind of poor. I remember sitting with my dad, my mom, and Victor's family, who I already knew. They lived near my house, almost my neighbors. I remember Victor's mom complaining to the waiter because I had more Duchess potatoes than she did. They had put like 3 Duchess potatoes on her plate, man. So poor. My parents had a wedding reception that same night. So, after the gala, I went with Robledo's family. I stayed at their house. We went in Robledo's dad's car, and they broke into the car there at Plaza Maipú. They stole some stuff. It was a bummer. The last memory I have, like from school, was that on Saturday, the day after the gala, my dad picked me up from Robledo's place to go watch him play. We went to the Liga La Reina football fields, where my dad still plays. Even to this day. When we arrived, we got out of the car, and my dad went to change. My last memory was wearing the graduation pants, sneakers, a shirt, and looking at the empty football field, remembering things from school. The ending was pretty calm. Because, you might think, oh, the gala party. It must have been crazy. Nah. It was really calm for me. Even though they broke into the car and all. It was calm. It was cool. The end of the cycle. Chapter 11. 1. There was this week when we went with the schoolmates and some other friends to Cajon del Maipo. It was during the summer, like late January or early February, so it was awesome. We started on a Wednesday. From school, there was Eddie, Cristobal, and Victor. Some of our friends joined too, and Adrian, who was the only one from Quinta Normal. It was my first time going to El Cajon. I went alone and arrived late that day, can't remember why. These guys didn't go to a campground. They went through Estero San Alfonso and found a cool spot. I just arrived, and they were already settled. We stayed for about 3 days. People started leaving gradually. In fact, Mudito and a couple of other guys went just for the day. On the last day, there were 4 of us. It was me, Adrian, and 2 girls. Adrian's tent was a piece of junk. He bought it for like 10 lucas at Home Center. It was small, and this jerk set it up on a rocky area. I was with Nicole, who was my friend, and Gabby, Nicole's friend. Gabby and I were kind of flirting with each other. I was acting all cool, especially because I had just gotten my star tattoo, so I thought I was the shit. I must have been around 20 years old. 19, 20. It ended up being the 4 of us, and we had some tequila. We cut some lemons we had left and started playing the bottle. At first, I didn't want to play because I would have to kiss Adrian. No way, what a disgusting thing to do. So, we agreed that if it landed on me, we would just give each other a little peck. Did you play the bottle like that? Why? How did you play it? In a heterosexual way, For example, if it landed on me and then on another man, it would be invalid and I would lose my chance. This was a long time ago, though. When I was a kid. Alright, I see. I had never played it, though. I had suggested something like that to the girls. Like, if it landed on me and Adrian, we would just pass, no big deal. But obviously, they didn't agree. They said, why should they have to kiss each other and we did nothing? And if we weren't going to play like that, we better not play at all. So that's why we accepted. So, you agreed with Adrian just to see the girls making out, right? Awkward pause, yeah, ha ha ha. Haven't you seen American Pie? Ha ha ha. Here, we played like whoever it landed on, and if the bottle landed on me twice in a row, I had to take a shot, The game would end when we ran out of tequila. There wasn't much left, though. We started playing. The girls would be chosen among themselves. They would make out and all. It landed on me twice with Nicole, my friend, and we just gave each other a peck. But when it landed on the girl I actually liked, yeah, we would make out and everything. There was only a tiny bit of tequila left, and I hadn't landed on Adrian once. So, I made the mistake of celebrating too early. I stood up and started dancing and making fun of the girls. I said, oh, man. I kissed both of you, you made out, and I didn't even kiss this guy. Then I sat down, they spinned the bottle, and right away, it landed on me and then Adrian. No. And I didn't want to, I was like, with a semi-aggressive voice, no, I don't want to, all serious. I sobered up and everything. It was just a little peck, but no. They started calling me Maricon for refusing to kiss a guy. Such a contradictory thing, ha ha. Ha ha ha. Well, in the end, I had to give in. Adrian laid down on the floor and started beckoning me with his finger, all sexy-like. In that moment, I thought, this guy must smell like grease. Or mustard. I told him to get up and stop messing around. He got up, and we started getting closer. I pursed my lips so they were barely visible, and we gave each other a peck. It was horrible, man. I never played that stupid game again. It was the first and last time, and it was the worst thing in the world. But then there was a silver lining because Adrian was going to his tent, and I was going to stay with the girls. You know, we started hearing strange things outside. In that area, it's not a campsite, it's a place with no light, nothing, and we felt like the pots were moving. We were scared shitless. We told Adrian to stay right there with us. We went to sleep, and I was over a rock. So, I asked Gabby if I could move closer to her. But it wasn't with any ulterior motive. Okay, fine, maybe it was 50% horny, but seriously, I couldn't sleep over that rock. She said okay. So I moved closer to her, and almost immediately, I started touching her and we made out. Nicole and Adrian were next to us while we were making out. After that, we started a relationship. It didn't last long though. 2. The next day, we left late. It was already around 8 p.m. And you know how it is from Cajon to Quinta Normal, it's a pain in the ass. You have to go through Las Vizcachas, then Puente Alto, and from there, it's a long haul to Parajitos Terminal just to catch a bus to Quinta Normal. We were carrying the tent, the pots and everything. We had a bad feeling about it. So I suggested to Adrian that he stay at my house. We arrived at my house, and Adrian suggested we watch a Johnny Knoxville movie. It's a movie where Johnny Knoxville goes to a town and everyone wants to have sex with him. A really shitty comedy. We started watching that movie at my house. We made some noodles and everything. By the way, I don't know if it happens to you, but after you come back from a place like Cajon del Maipo, you feel like the city stinks. You get all hippie-like. You feel super skinny and stuff. And what the hell? We arrived, ate like 3 plates of noodles, watched a dumb movie, and everything went back to normal right away. We were about halfway through the movie when Tomas called us from Ventana. Ventana is a beach close to Quintero, in the 5th region. Tomas' family has a house there. We answered the call, put it on speaker, and you could hear crazy girls screaming, having a great time, reggaeton playing in the background. Tomas was like, dude, come to the beach, we're having a blast, stay at my place, even Henry got a girlfriend. By the way, this was the girl Henry was crying over the day he mistakenly got into Adrian's grandfather's bed. Pato Loco, crazy ass, the one who flirted with everyone. Tomas was on fire. He was telling us, come, guys, it's awesome, stay at my house. And we were like, oh, cool, man. This was on a Friday. We told Tomas, okay, we'll come to Ventana tomorrow, wait for us. So, we planned with Adrian, like, alright, tomorrow we wake up early, have lunch, leave right away, and we'll arrive in the afternoon to party. Great. By the way, we had been to Tomas' house in Ventana before, but it was more like a family thing, you know? It wasn't a wild thing. The next day, we set off, but later than we had agreed. When we arrived in Ventana, it was already late evening. Ventana is kind of flat, man. It's a bit rough. You see, there's an industrial area right next to the beach. When you went towards the side where the industry was, the water was warm. People were swimming there as if nothing, but I'm pretty sure it was super toxic. And don't think the water was clear, man. It was black. And people and kids were there like it was nothing. We called Tomas to come pick us because we couldn't remember how to get to his house. We had our bags and everything. We started calling him, and that bastard wouldn't answer, man. Tomas, you weird fucker. Finally, he answered and said, what, all serious, that fucker, after all the excitement from the previous night. We told him, Tomas, hey, since we agreed to come here last night, we're here, mate. Come pick us up. Then that asshole Tomas goes and says, guys, I don't have space in my house. We started laughing, but kind of nervously. We were just kids, you know. We didn't have enough money to stay in a hotel or anything. We insisted, and he kept saying, guys, you really can't stay, just go back. And we were like, Tomas, you asshole, we can't go back, the bus terminal is closed, it was late at night, and it was Ventana. Then he said, no, it's just not possible, bye, and that fucker hung up on us. Adrian and I were screwed. We didn't know what to do. We thought about going to a hostel nearby, but we were short on cash. We would have spent everything we had for the summer on a hostel. That's when Adrian said, no, dude, you know what? I know a classmate from university who has a house here and is on vacation with his family. This happened when we were like 19 or 20 years old, because Adrian was studying at the time. He said let's call him, stay at his place, and leave tomorrow, he said. His name was Ivan. So, we called him, the guy answered, Adrian explained the situation, and he said, alright, come over, no problem. Awesome. We waited for him, smoked a cigarette there on the beach, had a beer, and after a while, Ivan arrived. Ivan was a chubby guy with a mustache, dark-skinned. Super friendly. We greeted each other and went straight to his house. It was quite a walk. We had to climb quite a bit to get there. Ivan's house was kind of unfinished, you know? The bathrooms were outside. The showers too. It was like a typical beach house, but very old. Ivan's mom and everyone received us very kindly. There were his uncle, 2 aunts, the kids, Ivan's mom, his little sister, and then Adrian and I arrived. We were a lot of people. One of the aunts greeted us and said, "Go upstairs and drop your things." We went to the second floor, and they had made a bed for us, man. It was like a double bed, red. They told us, "Just stay there, it's like a motel." They were joking, you know. Later, the three of us went out to party and came back around 6 in the morning. You know how long we stayed at that house? 2 weeks, man. And to top it off, that fucker Tomas ended up staying at the house for like 2 days. What a freeloader. We were originally planning to stay for just 1 day, but Ivan is really hospitable. And so is his mom, like a typical aunt taking care of you. So, we stayed there. We had a great time. You know what? The aunts used to shower us. The showers in the backyard were like mounds where we would get in. Then the aunts would pour water from above, and we were naked inside. We allowed that. We stayed at that house every day, waking up with hangovers, but they adored us. They called me El Teacher. I taught the little kids how to drink mate. I used to drink a lot of mate back then. The kids became addicted to mate because of me. 3. One day, as we were arriving at the house in the morning, Ivan's uncle was frying like 20 eggs in a pan. Adrian and I were like, "Oh, he made breakfast, cool," and the man replied, "No, boys, these eggs are mine. If you want, I can give you money to go buy and make your own." That's when Ivan told us that his uncle ate a panful of 20 eggs every day for breakfast. Was the man muscular or something? Why muscular? Well, sometimes those guys who build muscles eat a lot of eggs per day, you know? No, dude. He was just an old fucker. 4. On that trip, we also met Lalo, Ivan's cousin. This dude was missing these 2 fingers. He had this job where he was wearing one of those kangaroo hoodies, and a machine grabbed the hoodie and crushed his fingers. One day, Adrian and Lalo went to buy some stuff at the liquor store. When they arrived, they put the bags on the table, and Lalo tells me, "Dude, the bags were so heavy that my fingers fell off," and he shows me. Oh man, I burst out laughing. We used to go partying a lot to a knoll that was nearby. Besides us, more people would go, and there we would drink, meet girls, smoke, and everything. We would buy cheap wine and mix it with Ambrosoli juice. When we were feeling fancy, we would use Zucco, ha ha ha. Once, we were partying on the knoll, and we forgot that Lalo was with us. We went back to the house, went to bed and all, it was really late, and suddenly Adrian says, "Dude, I think we left Lalo on the knoll." We went to look for him. We got up, went through all that hassle, and there we found him. Lying down, sleeping on one of the knolls. Chapter 12. 1. I'm going to tell you some stuff that happened on beach trips. This was when we were around 15 or 16. We were in our second year of high school, transitioning to the third. That period brings back a lot of good memories because it's a stage where you're very dumb but you have to experience it. It's not like now, where you understand more. Back then, you were foolish, just starting to drink, smoke. So it was pretty cool. That summer, we made plans with the boys from school to go to the beach. It was me, Eddie, Robledo, Mora, and Busty. We went to El Quisco, which is near Algarrobo. We stayed at my brother-in-law's family house. My sister was there with her daughter, who was just a baby. The house was in one of those typical beach condos. Not paved or anything, just a dirt road. My sister charged us 5 lucas each for the stay. Dirt cheap. It was like charging us just for the sake of it. Plus, she would prepare lunch and everything. During the day, we would go swimming at the beach. At night, we would buy cheap booze, American cigarettes, and go down to the beach to show off. We would do silly things, like kids, but they were still funny. For example, there were these typical games in the condo, sisa, swings, slides, and all that. These games were enclosed with those typical beach fences. One day, we started fooling around on the playground with the boys, and we started throwing ourselves against the fence until we broke it. Just because we were idiot-drunk kids. With Busty, we would go to the center of the beach, and when we saw a girl, I would tell him to do the Johnny Bravo voice and say to her, "Hey, baby." And that idiot would do it. We would bet stupid things on what to say to the girls. Oh, how stupid we were. One night, we were drinking this rum Mitchens. The white one, the lemon-flavored kind. We got wasted. We started calling the boys who couldn't come. Among them, we called Adrian. Around 5 in the morning, when we were already asleep, I got a call. It was Adrian. I was wasted. I said, "Adrian, where are you?" He said, "I'm at a party in Quinta Normal," and I replied, "Cool." Then he said, "I'm going to the beach," and I was like, all right. I went back to sleep, and around 10 in the morning, he called me again. I answered. I had a headache from that shitty rum, and Adrian goes, "I'm on my way to the house," or something like that. I was like, "Dude, I don't care, let me sleep," and bam. I hung up. I was in another world. So damn tired and hungover. After a while, he calls me again and says, "I'm in El Quisco Square, come pick me up, I don't know how to get there." That's when it finally hit me. I got up and had to go get him, all messed up with a headache. 2. On the same day Adrian arrived, we went to El Canelo Beach. We started playing volleyball near the shoreline and left our belongings close to us. At some point, the tide started rising, and our stuff was about to get wet. I couldn't think of anything more stupid than lying down parallel to the water, trying to create a barrier between the sea and our things. Obviously, everything got soaked. Then we went back freezing to the house. On another day, we went back to El Canelo, and we wanted to ride the banana boat. That rubber boat thing. We wanted everyone to get on, so no one would stay behind. We asked an old lady near the shore to watch our things. Then we stood in line and got on. El Canelo has some intense waves sometimes. It gets you all scared, but we were laughing our asses off on that boat. Later, when they gave us the option, we started throwing ourselves into the water wearing life jackets. On the way back on the banana boat, Eddie, while laughing, says, "Oh, look. That backpack in the water looks like mine." We approached, and he realized it was his. He jumped in to retrieve it. The rest of us got off and realized that all our stuff was scattered along the shoreline. A wave had taken them. The old lady was gone, she didn't watch them. We started picking everything up. There was a baby playing with Busty's flip-flop, and Busty, acting all childish, started scolding the baby to give it back. 3. Behind the condo where we were staying, there was a forest. One of those typical beach forests. When you're a kid, you always like to scare yourself, you know? So one night, Adrian, Eddie, and I went to the forest. We were scared because there was no light. It only lit up in a clearing in the middle of the forest. We were also afraid because my brother-in-law once told me, and I told the boys, that when he was younger, he was in that forest with his friends and they saw some kind of alien man. All his friends saw it. We didn't fully believe it, but we were still on edge. We walked through the forest, all quiet, and suddenly, we heard noises like people. We moved forward and saw 4 guys jumping and singing around a bonfire. They must have been around 22, 23 years old. We were kids, so they seemed older to us. They noticed us, and we approached. They were just fooling around, you know, being silly. They said they were doing some kind of Macaton, because I don't know what. There was this tall guy in the group, and the others told us he was the biggest midget in the world. I always remember that. We hung out for a while, and then we left. 4. In the center of El Quisco, there was a big tent, and inside they had a laser gun game. It was a team game where you had to shoot at the opponents. You had to run through the tent, hide, and all that stuff. It was pretty cool. One day we went there. Mora, Robledo's cousin, was also there. In our team, there were 3 of us, Mora, Busty, and me. The others didn't want to play. We faced a team of flates, man. They were probably from El Quisco. We played against those guys, and we lost by a landslide. As we were leaving, Mora was missing. I went back to look for him and found the flates kicking him in the ass. I took him with me, and we left. Mora acted like nothing happened. I never knew what had happened. 5. One day we were playing volleyball on the beach, and there was a group of girls nearby. We started throwing the ball close to them, so the other guy would go fetch it. We wanted to start a conversation and ask them what they were going to do at night, you know. Busty didn't seem to get what we were doing. At one point, I threw the ball between the girls and the boys, and he angrily went to fetch it, cursing. As he was approaching, he tripped over a backpack and fell on Adrian's legs. The girls burst out laughing, but that's when we made the connection. We started talking, and they told us they were staying in some cabins nearby. We agreed to pick them up later to go down to the beach. At night, we got ready and went to pick up the girls. Adrian dressed up all fancy, man. I went there wearing a denim jacket, not caring much because we would be on the sand. We arrived at the address and shouted one of the girls' name from outside. They came out. Then we had to go to another cabin to pick up another girl. We started calling her, but no one was coming out. The girls started teasing us and said, "Come on, shout like men." So Adrian goes and shouts, "Claudia," in a very weird nasal voice. Man, I burst out laughing, but that's when the girl came out. We went with the girls and stayed on the beach. Right in front of where they were staying. We were drinking, talking, having a great time, and suddenly, out of nowhere, an old man with long white hair, like a hippie, comes up to us and says, "Hey, what's up, guys?" The girls seemed annoyed and told him, "Come on, Grandpa, go to bed." He was one of the girls' grandfather. The old man stayed there and never left. He ruined our mood, and we couldn't do anything. But at least we tried. We had never gotten that far, man. That old bastard, you know? He just came like that, trying to act all cool, man. Ha ha ha. 6. A few summers back, Adrian and I went to Ventana to visit Tommy. He received us that time. We were with his family. Tommy's uncle sold kneaded bread in Palmares on the beach. He had one of those megaphones that repeat a recording over and over. It said, "I sell Palmares, peanuts, kneaded bread." And all that stuff. So one day, we took the device and erased his recording and replaced it with something like "I sell my ass. I suck dicks." Ha ha ha. Just silly stuff like that. He came back later, furious with us. I think the man played it on full blast right there on the beach. 7. One day, we noticed that there was a super hot chick on the terrace of the house next door, man. She was sitting there, sunbathing. She looked like a model or one of those girls who show their asses on Instagram. We wanted to play it cool, so I called her and said, "Hey, hi. Do you happen to have sugar for the melon with wine?" Then the girl kind of stood up, started walking, and she was disabled, man. She was walking unsteadily. Oh, damn. As she got closer, we saw her, and she was really beautiful, but she was disabled. Then her mom came out and said, "Hello, boys, what do you want?" "Oh, you were talking to Christina. Alright, I'll bring you sugar." The girl was disabled, but damn, she was hot, man. 8. On that trip, one day we played any game with the boys. We got so drunk that we started wrestling at 5 in the morning. Right there on the street, man. There's a part in the SmackDown intro where they tackle Chris Jericho, and the dude brings down the set. I wanted to do that with Tommy, so I told him to spear me into the fence of the house across the street. At that moment, we realized nobody was home. So this guy goes, he spears me, and I crash into the fence and break it, man. We knocked it down. And like monkeys, laughing, jumping over the fence. Later, the next day, Tommy told me it was an abandoned house, so I didn't feel so guilty. 9. One time, the guys were going out to party at night, but Tomas didn't want to go because he wanted to watch the Vina del Mar festival. I wasn't there that summer, they told me about it. The guys went out, went dancing, met girls and all that. When they got back home, Tomas was in the living room watching the festival replay. That thing they show around 3 or 4 in the morning. He was all high and had smoked an entire pack of 20 cigarettes. Was there a specific artist he wanted to see or something? No, he was just being weird. He said that he didn't want to go out, that he was bored. Tomas sometimes has those episodes, you know. Like Alguita Marina, but the opposite. He locks himself in, you know? Hey, don't you guys get pissed off at Tomas sometimes? With everything you've told me. Well, Tomas is just funny, man. And he's crazy. Like, yeah. When he didn't receive us in Ventana, he acted like a jerk and all. Adrian and I got mad at him because, man, imagine if Yvonne hadn't been there. We would have been screwed. But after that, Tomas still hung out with us. It's not like he didn't want to see us. He just couldn't because his whole family was at home. He called us and invited us because he was drunk, you know? I don't know, man. 10. For another summer, the guys went to stay at a campground. I wasn't there either because I think I was hanging out more with the guys from university. The guys went there through a girl they knew. The girl's family sold fried potatoes, French fries, in one of those tin stalls they set up in front of the beach, you know? They also sold bread in the morning, and in their backyard, they had a campground. They did it all. They told the guys they could stay at the campground if they worked peeling potatoes during the day. One day, Tomas arrived so drunk that the bastard put his body inside the tent but left his head outside. It's like he didn't make it all the way and slept like that the whole night. I think the owners of the house woke up, looked at the tents, and saw Tomas sleeping with his head outside. Well, they let it slide. Maybe he did that in case he needed to puke? Probably, dude, I don't know. It's possible. Tomas said he didn't remember, anyway. The drop that overflowed the glass that summer was when Tomas arrived completely wasted in the early morning but didn't make it inside and fell asleep outside, at the entrance of the house. The thing is, people started arriving early in the morning to buy bread, and the first thing they saw when they arrived was Tomas, completely wasted, sleeping at the entrance. That's when the owner kicked them out. It was too much. 11. I just remembered something kinda bizarre. You know, once, during one of the beach trips, ISA and I had something. I mean, we were just holding hands, nothing more. But it wasn't like something romantic, it was mainly because we were cold. We were coming back from a party in the woods, and we walked to the house holding hands. It was a weird situation. I had forgotten about that anecdote. And who initiated holding hands? I don't know, man. We were walking, and we just held hands. Out of nowhere, you know? It was kinda strange. Chapter 13. 1. So, one day, when we had been staying with Yvonne's family for about a week, the girls from Quinta Normal arrived in Ventana. The group of girls from Quinta Normal also had a house in Ventana. It was a house that was sort of half-finished. The girls would go there every summer. So, we started hanging out with the girls in Ventana. It was like partying in Quinta Normal. That summer, I started wearing Speedos. One time, we were at the beach with the boys, and I was wearing a Speedo when the girls arrived. ISA was eating a Completo. We greeted each other, and one of the girls pointed out that my package was very noticeable. Then ISA looks. And drops her Completo. Oh man, we made fun of that so much. It was like a meme-worthy situation, you know? To this day, I remind her about the Completo incident, and she cracks up laughing. 2. One day, we went out partying really late. The girls had given us a tip about a party in a house near the beach. I think it was some people they knew who had a food cart. It was a very random party. Tomas wasn't home that day, it seems, and Ivan didn't want to go out. In the end, it was just Adrian and me who went. We arrived, but the party was winding down. It was around 5 in the morning. The Quinta normal girls had been there earlier. The hostess and her friends were very drunk, dude. Very drunk. It was like the girls' family inside the house, and the party was in the backyard. They had a barbecue going. Adrian and I arrived, trying to keep a low profile. Then, we started talking with the hostess and her friends. They were laughing because the hostess had kicked out a guy from the party for having stinky breath. Like, he tried to kiss her, but his breath was terrible. So, the girl kicked him out. At one point, they put on a reggaeton song, and this girl started dancing for us. She was dancing all sexy for me and Adrian. Suddenly, she stepped back, hit the grill, knocked it over, and, damn, she fell into the hot coals. She let out a huge scream, man. They picked her up, took her inside the house, and she didn't come out again. We could hear her moaning from inside. That's when I told Adrian, dude, let's get out of here. 3. One of the last days we were in Ventana, we gathered a big group and went to the liquor store. It was late, around midnight. Ventana, like most beaches, has an elevated area where cars enter from the highway. The liquor store we were going to was up on that level. It was me, Adrian, Tommy, and Ivan. The girls were there too, plus Joe, Marmota, and Henry with his girlfriend Danae. She was really nice. We didn't know that the girl was a whore. Henry and Joe are two of our friends who are kind of punk, you know? Especially Henry. His girlfriend too. Important thing to note, during that time, Radio Disney was just starting here in Chile. Tommy and I used to listen to it. We liked it a lot. At one point, Henry said, guys, let's wait because my brother is arriving. He's coming from Santiago, and he's almost here, coming up the street. Adrian asked, who? Tiniebla, Darkness? Yeah, Tiniebla, Henry replied. We were like, what the hell? Such a weird name. We waited, and suddenly we started hearing metal music. I said, what the hell? Back then, there weren't those small speakers people use for their phones. We saw this huge dude coming up, kind of fat, white and bald. He was wearing military shorts, a black tank top, and he was hairy. He had a battery-operated CD player with him, listening to metal. That's when Henry introduced us to his brother, Tiniebla. We greeted him, then went into the liquor store, bought some drinks, cigarettes, and then the guys came up with the brilliant idea of going to party in the woods. So, we headed out. We went in 3 groups, me with the boys, Henry with Tiniebla, Danae, and Joe, and all the girls together. The road was really eerie, we couldn't see anything. Sometimes, raging dogs appeared. We were carrying a flashlight. You could hear the electricity buzzing from the high voltage poles. And to top it off, Tiniebla didn't let us talk because he had that damn metal music blasting. We were drinking, but we weren't having a good time because of the music. Eventually, he turned it down a bit, and then we were able to talk. During the journey, we started talking nonsense about horror movies from the 80s. About how black and Latino characters always die right away, how you shouldn't go last or you disappear, and you shouldn't go first either, and all sorts of things like that. Adrian said that people who have sex in horror movies also end up dying, and I said, if I'm going to die anyway, I'd rather have had sex. We arrived at this place that looked like something out of Friday the 13th. There was an abandoned, run-down house. Near the house, there was a big log. Some of us sat on the log, while others stood around. We made a bonfire. We were all drinking, everything was fine. Tiniebla's radio ran out of battery. It started to fade. You see, those old radios, when the batteries run out, you can't listen to the CD, but you can still listen to the radio for a while. So, we told him to put on the radio. He started searching for a station, and he tuned into Radio Disney. They were playing some really cheesy music, and Tommy didn't find anything better to say than, yes, Radio Disney. Put it on. Tiniebla looked at him all serious. And just kept scrolling. Tommy was dumbfounded, and the girls told him, hey, don't be mean, put on Radio Disney. Tiniebla looked at them angrily, turned back to Radio Disney, and said to Tommy, read it with a guttural metalhead voice, there's your little music, faggot. That's how he talked, man, really intense. Tomas said, okay, never mind, change it then, but we kind of laughed. It was just a funny moment. The night went on and we were all messing around, kind of separated. I was messing around with the girls, and suddenly we heard some screams. I turned around and saw Tiniebla standing in front of the bonfire, staring at Henry's girlfriend, while she was yelling at him, you fucking jerk. Motherfucker, and all the guys were holding Henry back, who wanted to hit Tiniebla. He was out of his mind. I said, what the hell happened? Then, Tiniebla turned around and said to Henry, metalhead guttural voice, Henry, control your bitch. Referring to Danae, and Henry couldn't come up with a better response than saying, cartoonish voice, I control my bitch. You control your bitch. I didn't understand why the hell he said that. I tried to play the peacemaker and said to Tiniebla, hey, don't fight. He's your brother, we came here to have a good time. And then Danae goes and tells me, Emmy, don't pay attention to him, he's a fucking asshole, just like that, man. Treating him like shit. After that, Tiniebla goes and pulls out a wooden spear from the fire, man. Like a fiery dagger. I said, holy shit. I mean, I stayed quiet, but I thought, damn, he's going to kill her. Tiniebla then turned, looked at Danae, took out a cigarette, and with all the fire in his face, he lit it. Seriously badass. After that, things kind of calmed down, but everything was ruined. Henry went home with his girlfriend, and the rest of us stayed there for a while, but we just wanted to leave. We were feeling really uncomfortable. And why did the fight happen? I don't know, man. It's just that those guys were kind of intense, especially Tiniebla. I don't really know, to be honest. I would be making things up if I told you why it specifically happened. By the time we noticed, they were already yelling at each other. Later on, it started to get light out. We were leaving, and Tiniebla wouldn't leave us alone. In a moment, the fucker goes, hey guys, what are we gonna do tomorrow? Oh, fuck, seriously. The guy ruins everything and asks that. We started walking ahead on the path, and when he didn't notice, we took off running. We were scared, man. But then something else went down. Tiniebla went to Henry's house, where he was gonna stay, and caused a huge scene. He arrived, punched Henry's girlfriend in the vagina, and hit Henry. Then, their mom came out, and he broke her feet. He fractured his own mother's feet, man. Someone called the cops, and both Henry and Tiniebla got arrested. They ended up in court in Quintero. Shit hit the fan, man. Recently, not long ago, I saw Henry again. We met up. He told me he was friends with Tiniebla again. With his brother. Also, he had broken up with Danae. Henry always gets into messed up stuff. He told me that Danae got involved with a cop and that, according to what he told me, the cop planted cocaine in her car to take their child away of her. Oh. A bunch of messed up shit like that. Did Danae have a child with a cop? Yeah, but that was later. It was like 7 years after the Ventana story when I bumped into Henry and he told me about that. 4. We stayed one more day and then left early in the morning. It was me, Tomas, Adrian, Ivan, and Lalo, Adrian's cousin who was missing fingers. We arrived in Quintero and headed to buy tickets to Valpo. We had about half an hour before the bus to Valpo departed. We took the opportunity to go buy some stuff, and then some gypsy women approached us. They wanted to read our palms. They told us the usual stuff like, you have this and that, and then started asking for money. What a hassle. And if you don't want to give them money, they get mad, you know? They start throwing curses and shit. The one who read my palm, I told her, no, I don't have any money, and she responded, okay, but let me see your wallet. Just like that, man. I looked to the side, and they were reading Adrian's palm. The gypsy was telling him, you're a bad man, I can see it in your palm, huh? And I was listening to all that. Adrian was like, okay, I don't want to hear no more. And they started asking him for money too. They started getting insistent, so we decided the best thing to do was to run away. We didn't simply say no, we ran. The gypsies started shouting and throwing curses at us. Tomas was laughing his ass off with the boys. We were like kids. Well, we were kids. Do you remember what they told you when they read your palm? Not much. The gypsy told me something about the lifeline. That I was going to fall in love. Mostly generic stuff. There's nothing specific that I can remember now. Then we took the bus to Valpo. In Valpo, we had lunch and had some beers before leaving. What did you have for lunch? The usual. The typical rianita with mayo-dressed potatoes and rice. We were served by the typical waiter who offers you extras and then says, look, because it's me, I'll add this. But they all do that to get a tip from you. After that, we went to Vina. We passed by Marga Marga Promenade, where the craft fair is. There, Tomas bought some hipster glasses, you know? They were trendy at that fucked up time. I don't know if you remember. Which glasses are you referring to? Hipster glasses are those that look like prescription glasses but aren't. They have a black frame and transparent plastic lenses. The dude bought those. We did that tour of Valpo and Vina before heading to Santiago. And that was the Ventana trip. It was an unforgettable summer for me because everything happened. And when you arrived in Santiago? Well, we arrived in Santiago late. Around 9:30. I remember on the bus, I was listening to Champagne Supernova. I really liked that song. Also, Placebo. That one that goes, Johnny is always running around. Trying to find. I think it's called Johnny and Mary. We got off at Parajitos station and said our goodbyes there. I went to Maipú. Adrian and Tommy went to Quinta Normal, and Ivan and his cousin went to Puente Alto. Do you remember when you arrived home that day? Well, when I arrive home after a trip, it's always the same. I arrive, my parents welcome me, I leave my stuff, don't organize it right away, we eat something, sometimes I make myself some noodles, I take a shower, I lie down, turn on the TV, chat with my friends, and fall asleep. I've been to many places, and whenever I come back, it's the same story. It's a routine, and I always go to bed happy, remembering the things. The things you experience, you know. I've never returned from a trip thinking, damn, that was boring. No. Always good. Based on the life of Emerson Silva.